Welcome back, guys. This is Potter Fanfic Hub. Here we explore powerful Harry Potter, wild stories, and hidden magic. This video is still recorded and fully created in the line with YouTube's latest policies. What if Harry Potter become the Dragon Lord after bonding with the Hungarian Horntail at age 5th? If you enjoy big magical videos, subscribe to Potter Fanfic Hub. Now let's story begin.
Chapter 1, The Accidental Apparition. Prologue, The Cupboard's Whisper. The darkness of number 4, Privet Drive, was never truly silent. Even in the dead of night, when the streetlights cast their orange glow through the gaps in the curtains and the neighbors' dogs had finally ceased their barking, the house itself seemed to breathe with a life of its own. There were the creaks, the settling of old beams, the groan of floorboards adjusting to temperature changes, and there were the whispers. Not real whispers, of course. Harry Potter, at 5 years old, had learned that the voices in his head were just his imagination. Or so he'd been told. The boy in the cupboard under the stairs sat with his knees drawn to his chest, his thin arms wrapped around his legs, trying to make himself as small as possible. It was a skill he'd perfected over the years. The smaller he made himself, the less he was noticed. The less he was noticed, the less he was hurt. It was simple mathematics, really, though Harry didn't know the word for it. He only knew that when Uncle Vernon's massive hand descended toward him, it was better to be a shadow than a target. Tonight, however, the math wasn't working. The cupboard was hot and stuffy, even with the door cracked open a few inches, a concession Aunt Petunia had made after Harry had nearly suffocated one summer. His cot was too short, his feet dangled off the end, and the thin blanket he'd been given was threadbare and scratchy. His stomach growled, a hollow ache that had become as familiar as the scent of dust and stale air. Dinner had been a slice of bread and a glass of water, which was better than nothing, but not by much. Harry's mind wandered, as it often did in the dark hours before dawn, to the question that haunted him every day: why? Why did they hate him? What had he done wrong? He tried so hard to be good, to be invisible, to follow every rule and never make a sound. But it never seemed to matter. The moment he stepped out of line, the moment he made a mess, or accidentally broke something, or sneezed too loudly, the punishments would come. And then there were the other things. The strange things. The things Harry had learned never to speak about aloud. Like that time he'd made Dudley's toy shrink without touching it. He'd been 6, and Dudley had been chasing him through the garden, threatening to stuff him in the bin. Harry had been so frightened, so desperate to escape, that the toy helicopter in Dudley's hand had suddenly crumpled into the size of a coin. Dudley had screamed, and Harry had been locked in the cupboard for 3 days. Or the time his hair had grown back overnight after Aunt Petunia had cut it all off with kitchen shears. She'd screamed at him for hours, accusing him of witchcraft. Harry hadn't understood the word at the time, only that it meant something terrible and that he needed to hide every strange thing that happened around him. And then there were the dreams. The dreams of fire. Harry closed his eyes, pressing his forehead against his knees, and let himself drift. In his dreams, he could fly. He could breathe fire. He could command storms and shake the earth with his voice. There were creatures in his dreams, great, winged beasts with scales like jewels and eyes like molten gold. They looked at him with recognition, with love, with a fierceness that made his heart ache. But they were just dreams. The cupboard under the stairs was real. The Dursleys were real. The hate was real. Harry opened his eyes and stared into the darkness. He couldn't sleep. He never could when Uncle Vernon was in one of his moods. Tonight had been the worst in a long time. It had started with Dudley's birthday party. Dudley, the pig in a wig, had turned 12 and demanded a dozen of his friends for a celebration. The house had been packed with screaming children, all of them twice Harry's size and triple his weight. They'd made him serve them drinks, bring them cake, and clean up after them. One of them, a boy named Piers, had shoved Harry into the garden shed and locked him inside for an hour. Harry had gotten out eventually, using a trick he discovered last winter: if he concentrated very hard on what he wanted, sometimes it happened. He'd imagined the lock clicking open, and it had. He'd slipped out and returned to the party, but Piers had noticed. "Oi! Freak got out!" Piers had shouted. And then the game had begun. The chase had ended with Harry in the kitchen, surrounded by Dudley's gang. Piers had been holding a baseball bat. Dudley had been grinning that horrible, gap-toothed grin. Harry had felt the familiar stirring of something inside him, something hot and dangerous, but he'd forced it down. He couldn't let the strangeness happen. Not when he was trapped and terrified. But then Piers had swung the bat at his head, and Harry's magic had exploded. The lights in the house had burst. Every bulb in the kitchen and the dining room shattered at once, plunging the party into darkness. The children had screamed. The adults had panicked. And Harry had run for the cupboard, slamming the door behind him and waiting for the inevitable. Vernon's rage had been volcanic. He'd pulled Harry from the cupboard by his ear, dragging him into the living room. Harry's ear had bled. His back had been slapped so many times it felt like fire. And then Vernon had screamed the words that still echoed in Harry's mind. "I'll kill you, you freak. I'll kill you and your filthy magic. You're not human. You're nothing. Nothing." Harry had cried. He'd cried, and eventually, Vernon had tired of hitting him. Harry had been thrown back in the cupboard, told to stay there until he'd learned not to be a burden. The lock had been turned, and Harry had been left alone with the darkness. That had been 5 hours ago. Now, with the house silent and the danger past, Harry was left with the aching loneliness that always followed the anger. He had no one. No one in the world cared about him. He knew this with a certainty that was deeper than bone. He was a freak, an orphan, a burden. He was the unwanted child of dead parents who'd abandoned him to the worst people imaginable. But even as he thought this, there was a flicker of resistance in his chest. A small, stubborn voice that whispered, "No. You are not nothing. You are more than they know. More than you know." Harry didn't understand the voice. He only knew that it was the same voice that appeared in his dreams, the same presence that filled his heart with longing for something he couldn't name. Something warm and fierce and protective. Something like family. He'd never had a real family. The Desleys didn't count. They were more like wardens than relatives. Harry had sometimes wondered if there were other people out there like him, people who could do strange things, people who dreamed of fire and flying. Maybe his parents had been like that. Maybe they hadn't abandoned him. Maybe they'd been taken away. The thought was too painful to dwell on. Harry pushed it aside and tried to sleep. But the darkness wouldn't let him. It pressed in around him, heavy and suffocating. His chest tightened with anxiety, and his hands began to tremble. He felt like a pot about to boil over, the pressure building and building until something had to give. And then, Harry heard something. It was a sound that didn't belong in the silent house. A soft, almost musical whispering, like wind through leaves. But there was no wind outside. The windows were closed. The house was still. Harry's heart began to pound. He pressed his ear to the door, straining to hear. The whispering grew clearer, and he realized, with a chill of terror, that it was coming from inside his own mind. "Child of fire. Child of lightning. The time has come. The flames awaken." Harry gasped and pulled back. His hands were shaking, and his skin felt hot, too hot, like he was standing next to an open fire. He looked down at his palms and saw, to his horror, that they were glowing. A soft golden light emanated from his skin, pulsing like a heartbeat. Harry stared in disbelief. This was new. This was different from the hair growing and the shrinking and the exploding lights. This was something else entirely. Something that felt alive. The cupboard began to grow warm. The air thickened. Harry could hear his own breathing, fast and shallow, mixing with the sound of his racing heart. And then, a sharp pain lanced through his chest, and Harry doubled over, gasping. His vision blurred. His head swam. The walls of the cupboard seemed to close in on him, pressing against his shoulders, crushing the breath from his lungs. "No," he whispered. "Please. Please stop." But the power didn't stop. It grew, surging through him like wildfire. Harry felt his body begin to twist, to bend, to change. It was terrifying and exhilarating all at once. For a moment, he felt like he was flying, like he was soaring through the sky on wings made of fire. And then, the world vanished. Harry screamed as the cupboard dissolved around him. The darkness of Privet Drive was replaced by a swirling vortex of light and sound. He was falling, no, he was hurtling through space at impossible speed. The air rushed past him, tearing at his clothes, making his eyes water. He tried to shout, but his voice was swallowed by the roar. He was somewhere else. Somewhere cold and dark and terrifying. He could feel the ground beneath him, hard and rough, like stone. He could smell strange scents, smoke, ash, and something metallic. He could hear sounds he'd never heard before, growls, hisses, and a deep, resonant rumble that made the ground shake beneath him. Harry forced his eyes open and screamed. He was in a cavern. A vast, monstrous cavern, easily as large as the entire Dursley house and garden combined. The walls were made of black rock, slick with moisture, and they glowed faintly with an eerie red light. The air was thick and heavy, smelling of sulfur and heat. And in the center of the cavern, towering over Harry like a mountain, was something that he had only seen in his dreams. A dragon. It was enormous, larger than anything Harry could have imagined. Its scales were black as coal, gleaming with an oily sheen in the red light. Great spines ran down its back, each one as long as Harry's arm, and its wings were folded against its sides, massive membranes that could have covered the entire house. Its head was a nightmare of jagged angles, with horns curling backward from its skull and nostrils that billowed smoke with every breath. And its eyes. Its eyes were molten gold, burning like twin suns in the darkness. Harry stared up at the monster, paralyzed with fear. He couldn't move. He couldn't breathe. He couldn't even think. This was real. This wasn't a dream. He was in a dragon's lair, and the dragon was looking at him. The beast opened its mouth, revealing rows of teeth as long as Harry's fingers. A low, rumbling growl emerged from deep in its throat, vibrating through the ground and up into Harry's bones. He was going to die. The dragon was going to eat him, or burn him, or crush him, and no one would ever know what happened to him. Harry squeezed his eyes shut and prayed for it to be over quickly. But the pain never came. Instead, Harry felt something strange. A warmth, like the touch of a gentle hand, spreading across his chest. He opened his eyes and found the dragon's great head lowering toward him, its enormous snout mere inches from his face. It was smelling him, he realized. Its nostrils flared, and hot breath washed over him in waves. And then, something happened that Harry never could have predicted. The dragon's eyes softened. The anger and aggression faded, replaced by something that looked almost like recognition. The beast let out a low, rumbling sound, not a growl this time, but something softer, almost like a coo. It nudged Harry with its snout, and Harry stumbled backward, falling onto the cold stone floor. The dragon lowered its head further, and Harry found himself staring into those golden eyes. There was intelligence there, he realized. The dragon wasn't just an animal. It was thinking, feeling, judging. And whatever it had decided about Harry, it wasn't hungry. The dragon pulled back and let out a long, echoing roar that shook the walls of the cavern. Harry clapped his hands over his ears, but the sound wasn't just noise, it was power. It thrummed through him, resonating with something deep in his chest. His heart began to beat in time with the roar, and his skin began to glow again, faintly but unmistakably. The dragon stopped roaring and stared at Harry with renewed interest. It sniffed at him again, and this time, when it did, Harry felt something strange. Something like a connection. A thread of warm light, stretching from his chest to the dragon's heart. The dragon's eyes widened, and Harry watched in amazement as its scales seemed to shimmer, shifting from black to a deep, reddish gold. A low, melodic hum emanated from its throat, and the creature slowly, carefully, lowered itself to the ground, its massive body folding to lie beside Harry. Harry was so stunned that he couldn't move. The dragon lay next to him, its head resting on the stone floor, its golden eyes fixed on him with an expression he could only describe as tender. And then, Harry heard it. A voice, deep and rumbling, echoing in his mind. A voice that did not belong to the dragon's sounds, but to something deeper, something ancient. Child of fire, you have come home. Harry opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. His throat was too dry, his heart too full. He stared at the dragon beside him, at this impossible creature that had been his greatest nightmare just moments ago, and felt a tear slide down his cheek. I'm not dreaming, Harry whispered. You're real. The dragon rumbled in agreement, and a puff of smoke escaped its nostrils. Yes, little one. I am real. And you are not alone. Not anymore. Harry didn't understand how this was happening. He didn't understand how a dragon could speak to him, or why it hadn't killed him, or how he'd ended up in this cavern in the first place. But he did understand one thing, with a certainty that filled him with a warmth he'd never known before. He was safe. For the first time in 5 years, Harry Potter felt safe. And then, the warmth in his chest surged, and Harry's eyes burned with light, and the dragon's scales flared with a brilliant golden fire, and the bond between them was sealed. The dragon's choice, a bond forged in fire. The dragon's name was Ferox. Harry learned this the way he learned many things in the days that followed, through the strange, wordless communication that had opened between them. Ferox was a Hungarian Horntail, one of the most dangerous dragon species in the world. She was a mother, though her eggs had been stolen by poachers years ago, and she had been in a state of grief and rage ever since. Until Harry. Harry didn't understand why Ferox had bonded with him. He was just a small boy, weak and frightened, with nothing to offer a creature of such power. But Ferox had sensed something in him, something ancient and familiar, and she had chosen him as her own. Now, Harry sat on the edge of the dragon's nest, a massive structure made of stone and bone and the charred remains of prey, and tried to make sense of his new reality. The cavern was vast, stretching so far in every direction that Harry could barely see the walls. There were tunnels leading off from it, some large enough for Ferox to fit through, others small enough for Harry to explore. The air was warm and smoky, smelling of ash and earth, and the ground was covered in a soft layer of dust and gravel. Ferox was lying beside the nest, her great head resting on her massive paws. Her eyes were half closed, but Harry could feel her attention on him, warm and watchful. She was guarding him, he realized. Protecting him from whatever lay beyond. The cavern. There was a sound from one of the tunnels, a distant clatter, like stones falling. Ferox's head snapped up, and a low growl built in her throat. Harry's heart raced. Was something coming? Something dangerous? Stay, Ferox's voice echoed in his mind. Do not leave the nest. I will return. Before Harry could respond, Ferox surged to her feet and galloped toward the tunnel, her massive body moving with surprising speed and grace. She vanished into the darkness, and Harry was left alone in the cavern. He sat in the nest, trembling, and tried not to imagine what might be coming. Outside the cavern, in the bright morning light of the Romanian Dragon Reserve, head keeper Dmitry Volkov stood with his arms crossed, staring at the dark entrance to the Horntail's lair. This is bad, he said, his thick Russian accent making the words sound even more ominous. Very bad. The Horntail has been disturbed. Poachers, perhaps. Or something worse. Beside him, a young man with red hair and a scattering of freckles clutched his wand with white-knuckled fingers. Charlie Weasley was only 16, barely old enough to be an apprentice, but he was the only one willing to accompany Dimitri into the dangerous territory. The other keepers had refused, too afraid of the Horntail's reputation. "We should wait for backup," Charlie said, trying to keep his voice steady. "The Ministry. The Ministry will send paper pushers," Dimitri interrupted. "By the time they arrive, the poachers will be gone, and the Horntail will be dead. We go now." Charlie swallowed hard. "Yes, sir." They entered the tunnel, moving carefully through the darkness. The air grew warmer the deeper they went, and the scent of sulfur and dragon grew stronger. Charlie could hear his heart pounding in his ears, and he kept his wand raised, ready to defend himself at a moment's notice. And then, they saw it. In the distance, a pair of golden eyes glowed in the darkness. The Horntail was watching them, her massive form blocking the tunnel ahead. She was growling, a low, rumbling sound that vibrated through the ground and into Charlie's chest. Dimitri raised his hands, speaking in a low, calming voice. "Easy, Ferox. Easy. We're not here to hurt you. We're just here to check on you." The dragon didn't respond. She simply stared at them, her golden eyes unblinking. And then, Dimitri saw it. A small form, barely visible in the darkness, sitting behind the dragon's massive body. A child. A tiny, ragged, dirty child, with wild black hair and vivid green eyes. Dimitri's breath caught in his throat. "What in the name of Merlin?" "Harry," Charlie whispered, his voice hoarse with disbelief. "That's Harry Potter. That's the boy who lived." Dimitri turned to Charlie, his expression one of pure shock. "You know this child?" "I don't know him personally," Charlie said quickly, his mind racing. "But everyone knows his story. His parents were murdered by you-know-who. He disappeared years ago. The Ministry searched everywhere for him, but they never found him. They thought he was dead." The dragon stirred, shifting her massive body to block the child from view. She let out a warning rumble, and Dimitri held up his hands again. "We mean him no harm," Dimitri said. "We're here to help." The dragon stared at him for a long, tense moment. And then, slowly, she stepped aside. Harry Potter blinked up at the two strangers, his green eyes wide and frightened. He looked terrible, thin, bruised, and wearing clothes that were far too small for him. But there was a fire in his eyes, a spark of defiance that spoke of survival against impossible odds. "Please don't hurt me," Harry whispered. "I didn't mean to come here. I don't know what happened. I was in the cupboard, and then I was here, and the dragon didn't eat me, and I don't understand what's happening." Charlie crouched down, keeping his movements slow and gentle. "It's okay, Harry. My name's Charlie. Charlie Weasley. I'm a dragon keeper here. You're safe." Harry stared at him, his eyes searching Charlie's face for any sign of deception. "You're not going to send me back?" Charlie hesitated. He didn't know what to say. The Ministry had been looking for Harry Potter for years, but they'd never found him. And if the child had somehow apparat here, if he was a wizard, and a powerful one at that, then sending him back to wherever he'd come from might not be the safest option. "That's not up to me," Charlie said honestly. "But right now, you need rest and food and a warm place to sleep. Can we help you with that?" Harry looked at Ferox, who was watching him with those golden eyes. Harry nodded slowly, and the dragon let out a huff of approval. "Okay," Harry said. "I'll trust you. But Ferox comes with me." Charlie and Dimitri exchanged a look. This was going to be complicated. The bond deepens, raising a dragon child. 3 weeks later, Harry sat in the Dragon Reserve's infirmary, watching as the healer applied a salve to the burns on his arms. Burns. Again. Harry had lost count of how many times he'd been burned in the past few weeks. Not by Ferox, she was always careful with him, but by the other dragons, the ones who didn't understand why a tiny human was in their territory. They saw him as an intruder, a threat, and Harry had learned the hard way to stay close to Ferox for protection. The reserve keepers had tried to separate Harry from Ferox in the early days. They'd thought the dragon would eventually lose interest and let them take the child away. Instead, Ferox had become more aggressive, more protective, and Harry had started screaming in a language that no one could understand. Dragonish, the healers had called it. A language that dragons used, ancient and primitive. Harry had picked it up from Ferox, just as he'd picked up her habits, her instincts, her power. "Stay still, little one," the healer said, her voice gentle. "This will help the healing." Harry nodded, wincing as the salve stung his raw skin. He wished Ferox were here. She'd been separated from him again, kept in a large enclosure while the keepers figured out what to do with Harry. He could feel her through their bond, a constant warmth in his chest, but he couldn't see her, and that made him anxious. Charlie entered the infirmary, looking tired but relieved. "How's he doing?" "The burns are healing well," the healer said. "But the child needs rest and proper nutrition. He's malnourished, which is making the healing process slower." Charlie nodded, his expression grave. He sat down on the cot next to Harry and offered him a reassuring smile. "Hey, Harry. How are you feeling?" "I'm okay," Harry said, though his voice was small and uncertain. "Can I see Ferox now?" Charlie hesitated. "Not yet, Harry. We need to talk about a few things first." Harry's heart sank. "Is she okay? Is she hurt?" No, she's fine," Charlie assured him quickly. "She's just, well, she's a Hungarian Horntail. The most dangerous dragon species in the world. We can't just let her roam free in the reserve with other dragons and keepers around." "She wouldn't hurt anyone," Harry said fiercely. "She wouldn't. She's good." Charlie looked at the boy, seeing the fierce loyalty in his eyes. Harry really believed that the Horntail was good, even though she'd killed countless creatures and could kill a human with a single swipe of her claws. That bond was deeper than any rational explanation. The door to the infirmary opened, and Dmitri walked in, accompanied by an elderly wizard with a long white beard and eyes that seemed to see right through Harry. "Harry," Dmitri said, "this is Eldrick Thornwood. He's a specialist in dragon magic. He wants to talk to you." Harry eyed the old wizard warily. "What kind of dragon magic?" Eldrick smiled, his voice warm and grandfatherly. "I study the bond between dragons and wizards, young man. It's a rare and special thing, and from what I've heard, you have one of the strongest bonds I've ever encountered." Harry didn't know what to say to that. He just stared at Eldrick, waiting for the man to say something else. "May I examine your magical core, Harry?" Eldrick asked gently. "It will only take a moment." Harry looked at Charlie, who nodded encouragingly. "It's okay, Harry. I trust him." Harry nodded slowly and allowed Eldrick to place a hand on his chest. The old wizard closed his eyes, concentrating, and Harry felt a strange tingle, like being poked by invisible fingers. Eldrick's eyes snapped open. "Impossible." "What?" Dmitri asked, his face paling. "What is it?" Eldrick stepped back, staring at Harry with a mix of awe and fear. "This child's magical core is not just bonded to a dragon. It's merging with the dragon's magic. His core is changing, transforming. In a few years, he may not be fully human anymore." Harry felt a cold chill race down his spine. "What do you mean?" "I mean, young man, that your bond with Ferox is not just a magical connection. It's a symbiotic transformation. Your magic is becoming dragon magic, and your body is becoming something else. Something ancient and powerful." Harry stared at him, his mind reeling. "I'm going to turn into a dragon." Eldrick laughed softly. "No, not a dragon. But you will be something more than human. Something between a wizard and a dragon. Something that hasn't been seen in centuries. Harry didn't understand. He was just a boy, a weird boy from a terrible family who didn't want him. He wasn't supposed to be special. He wasn't supposed to be anything. What am I? Harry whispered. Eldrick looked at him with something like reverence. You, Harry Potter, are a dragon lord. The keeper's secret, a hidden child. The days turned into weeks, and the weeks turned into months. Harry remained in the dragon reserve, hidden from the outside world, raised by keepers and dragons alike. Dimitri had made the decision to keep Harry's existence a secret. The Ministry of Magic was corrupt, and the world was still recovering from the shadow of you-know-who. If Harry's unique nature were discovered, he would become a target, for exploitation, for experimentation, or for assassination. So Harry stayed hidden. He lived among the dragons, learned their ways, and grew stronger every day. Ferox had been relocated to a private enclosure, but Harry visited her every day. Their bond had deepened, and Harry could now understand her thoughts as clearly as if she were speaking in English. He could feel her emotions, her protectiveness, her love. She was his mother now, in all the ways that mattered. Charlie became Harry's mentor and closest human friend. He taught Harry about the wizarding world, about Hogwarts and Quidditch and magic, but Harry struggled to understand human society. He was more comfortable with dragons, who were straightforward and honest in their emotions. Humans were complicated, with their hidden meanings and polite lies. You'll get the hang of it, Charlie told him one day, as they watched a young dragon learning to fly. It just takes practice. It's easier with the dragons, Harry said, watching the young creature flap its wings uncertainly. They don't lie. They don't pretend to like you and then hate you behind your back. Charlie sighed. People aren't always bad, Harry. Sometimes they just don't understand. And sometimes they're afraid. I know, Harry said. But I still don't like it. Charlie chuckled. Fair enough. Harry continued to grow, learning everything he could about dragons. He learned to read their moods, to understand their social structure, to speak their language fluently. The reserve keepers were amazed by his progress. They'd never seen a human so attuned to dragons, so connected to their essence. But Eldrick was worried. He'd been studying Harry's magical core for months, tracking its changes with increasing concern. Harry's bond with Ferox was becoming stronger, and his powers were becoming more unpredictable. He's changing faster than I expected, Eldrick told Dimitri. One night. His magic is becoming more draconic. Soon, he'll start manifesting dragon traits. Dimitri frowned. What kind of traits? Eldrick's expression was grim. Fire breathing. Scales. Enhanced strength and senses. He's becoming a dragon lord, Dimitri. A being that hasn't been seen in centuries. Dimitri was silent for a long moment. Is that bad? Eldrick shook his head slowly. Not necessarily. The ancient dragon lords were powerful and respected. But they were also hunted. Their enemies feared them, and they did terrible things to destroy them. If Harry's nature is discovered, he will be in grave danger. Dimitri met Eldrick's gaze. Then we protect him. We keep him hidden until he's ready to face the world. Eldrick nodded. Agreed. It was a vow that would shape the rest of Harry's life. The first sign, the flame awakens. Harry was 7 years old when he breathed fire for the first time. It happened during an incident with a young dragon named Rascal. Rascal was a mischievous Welsh green who'd taken a liking to Harry. He followed Harry everywhere, stealing his food, nipping at his heels, and generally causing chaos. One afternoon, Harry was helping the keepers feed the dragons. Rascal, as usual, was making a nuisance of himself. He kept trying to steal the raw meat from Harry's bucket, and Harry kept pushing him away. Stop it, Rascal, Harry said, laughing. You'll get your share when I'm done. Rascal didn't stop. He lunged at the bucket, knocking it from Harry's hands. The meat scattered across the ground, and the other dragons descended on it like a pack of wolves. Harry was furious. "Rascal! You ruined everything." Rascal, oblivious to Harry's anger, bounded away with a piece of meat in his mouth. Harry chased after him, but the young dragon was too fast. Without thinking, Harry opened his mouth and screamed. And then, golden flames erupted from his throat. The fire shot across the enclosure, striking Rascal in the flank. The young dragon let out a screech of pain and fear, and Harry stumbled back, his hands flying to his mouth. He'd breathed fire. He'd breathed fire. The other dragons stopped eating, their heads turning to stare at Harry. There was a moment of complete silence, and then, one by one, they began to bow their heads. Harry didn't understand. He was too shocked, too terrified, to understand what was happening. The keepers rushed in, their wands raised, and stopped in their tracks at the sight of Harry standing in the center of the enclosure, his eyes glowing with golden light. "Harry!" Charlie shouted. "Harry, are you okay?" Harry opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. He just stared at his hands, which were now covered in a thin layer of golden scales. "Get the healers," Dimitri said, his voice low and urgent. "And get Eldrick. Now." Harry didn't remember much after that. He passed out from the shock of it all, and when he woke up, he was in the infirmary with Eldrick and Dimitri watching over him. "He's entered the next stage," Eldrick said quietly. "His body is adapting to the dragon bond. The fire breathing is just the beginning. There will be more changes." "What do we do?" Dimitri asked. Eldrick looked at Harry, his expression softening. "We help him adapt. We teach him to control his power. And we prepare him for what's coming." Harry heard the words, but they didn't really register. All he could think about was the fire. The dragon fire that had come from his own throat. He was becoming something different. Something he didn't understand. But as he looked at the dragons outside the window, watching him through the glass with their golden eyes, he realized something important. He wasn't afraid. He was excited. The dragon's prophecy, a dark legacy. Eldrick's research had uncovered something troubling. In the ancient scrolls hidden beneath the reserve, he'd found references to a prophecy about a child of fire and lightning who would bond with a dragon and become the Dragon Lord. "The prophecy is ancient," Eldrick explained to Harry one evening. "It was written by the last Dragon Lord, the one who watched his order fall to the Shadow Hunters." "Shadow Hunters?" Harry repeated, the name unfamiliar. "They were wizards who hated dragons," Eldrick said. "They hunted them, killed them, and tried to wipe them out. They were the ones who destroyed the Dragon Lords. And they've been waiting for someone like you to appear." Harry felt a chill run down his spine. "Why would they wait for me?" Eldrick's expression was sad. "Because the prophecy says that the Dragon Lord will return and unite the dragons against their enemies. The Shadow Hunters have been looking for you, Harry. They've been hunting for any sign of a child with dragon powers." Harry looked at Ferox, who was lying in the corner of the infirmary, watching him. She knew what he was thinking. She could feel his fear. "What do I do?" Harry whispered. "You prepare," Eldrick said. "You train. You learn to control your power. And when the time is right, you fight." Harry nodded slowly. He didn't understand everything Eldrick was saying, but he understood one thing: the world was dangerous, and he needed to be strong enough to survive it. That night, as Harry lay in his cot, he dreamed of fire and shadows. He dreamed of a great dragon, the size of a mountain, fighting an army of dark wizards. He dreamed of himself, standing at the dragon's side, his eyes blazing with golden fire. When he woke up, he wasn't afraid anymore. He was ready. The Vault's awakening, the Dragon Lord's heir. Harry was 9 years old when he found the vault beneath the reserve. It was an accident, as most discoveries in Harry's life were. He'd been exploring the tunnels beneath the reserve, following a trail of ancient dragon tracks that had been sealed for centuries. He'd found a hidden door, a massive stone slab covered in strange symbols, and he'd touched it. The door had opened. And Harry had stepped into a treasure trove of Dragon Lord relics. Eldrick was the first to realize what Harry had found. The old wizard had been researching the Dragon Lords for decades, but he'd never been able to locate their hidden vaults. Now, he saw the culmination of his life's work spread out before him. Merlin's beard, Eldrick whispered. It's all here. The artifacts, the scrolls, the weapons. Everything the Dragon Lords left behind. Harry walked through the vault, his eyes wide with wonder. There were treasures of every kind, gold, jewels, ancient weapons, but what caught his attention were the scrolls. Hundreds of scrolls, stacked in neat rows, containing the wisdom of the Dragon Lords. The Dragon Crown, Eldrick said, pointing to a chest. They said it was hidden. They said it was lost forever. But it's here. It's all here. Harry didn't understand the significance of the Dragon Crown. He only knew that it felt important, like something he was supposed to have. He reached out to touch the chest, but Eldrick stopped him. Not yet, young one, Eldrick said. The crown is too powerful. It won't reveal its secrets until you're ready. When will I be ready? Harry asked. Eldrick smiled. When you've earned it. When you've proven yourself worthy of the Dragon Lord's legacy. Harry nodded, accepting Eldrick's answer. He would wait. He would train. And one day, he would claim the crown and fulfill the prophecy. But as he left the vault, he couldn't shake the feeling that his destiny was closing in on him. The shadow hunters were out there, waiting for him. The dragons were gathering, sensing his power. And something dark was stirring in the world beyond the reserve. The hunters emerge, a new threat. The first sign that the shadow hunters had found Harry came on a rainy night in the Romanian wilderness. Harry was training with Ferox, practicing his fire breathing, when he sensed it, a presence in the darkness beyond the reserve. Something cold and malevolent, watching him with hungry eyes. Ferox felt it too. She went rigid, her golden eyes scanning the darkness. We're being watched, she sent to Harry. Harry's heart raced. He'd heard Eldrick's stories about the shadow hunters. He knew they were dangerous. He knew they were his enemies. Who's there? Harry called out, his voice steady despite his fear. There was no response. The darkness remained silent and still. But Harry knew someone was there. He could feel it in his bond with Ferox, in the way her scales rippled with tension. Show yourself, Harry demanded. And then, he saw them. Figures emerging from the mist, dark-cloaked wizards, their faces hidden in the shadows. There were at least a dozen of them, all of them armed, all of them staring at Harry with cold, merciless eyes. The Dragon Lord, one of them hissed. We found him at last. Ferox let out a roar of fury and lunged toward them. The hunters scattered, raising their wands to defend themselves. A battle began. Harry didn't know how to fight. He wasn't a warrior. He was just a child. But he had Ferox, and she was fierce, and together, they drove the hunters back. It was a close fight. Several hunters were killed by Ferox's claws and fire. But the ones who survived fled into the darkness, vowing to return. We will have the Dragon Lord, one of them screamed as they retreated. The hunters always get their prey. Harry collapsed to the ground, shaking with adrenaline. He'd almost died. He'd almost been captured. But he'd survived. And he knew that this was just the beginning. The bond of fire, the Horntails forever. That night, Harry and Ferox lay together in the sanctuary, their bond pulsing with warmth and reassurance. I will protect you, Ferox promised. No one will harm you while I live. Harry pressed his cheek against her scales, feeling their familiar warmth. I don't understand why they want me so much. Because you are special, Ferox said. You are the Dragon Lord. You carry the power of our kind. They fear you, and fear makes them desperate. But I don't want to be a Dragon Lord. Harry whispered. I just want to be a normal boy. Ferox let out a rumble of amusement. You are anything but normal, little one. And that is your strength. Harry smiled, a small, fragile smile. I'm glad I found you, Ferox. And I am glad I found you, my child. You are my heart, my fire, my legacy. Harry fell asleep, cradled against the warmth of the Horntail's body. In his dreams, he soared on wings of fire, a king among dragons. And for the first time in his life, he felt like he truly belonged. End of Chapter 1. Chapter 2, The Dragon's Choice. The Weight of Fire, Harry's new reality. 3 months had passed since the attack. 3 months since Harry had learned that the Shadow Hunters knew he existed. 3 months since he'd watched Ferox tear through dark wizards with a fury that still haunted his dreams. Now, at 7 years old, Harry Potter sat on a sun-warmed rock at the edge of the Dragon Reserve, watching a flock of Golden Emperor hatchlings learn to hunt. Their tiny flames sputtered and died as they chased after enchanted targets, their high-pitched squeaks echoing across the valley. Harry's eyes followed their movements with an intensity that surprised even him. He could feel their frustration, their excitement, their hunger. Through the bond that connected him to all dragons, not just Ferox, he sensed their emotions as clearly as his own. Focus, little ones, he projected, not realizing the power in his words. Feel the fire in your chest. Let it grow. Let it become part of you, One of the hatchlings, a brilliant gold creature with eyes like emeralds, paused mid-flight and turned to face Harry. It tilted its head, studying him with ancient wisdom that belied its youth. Then, to Harry's amazement, it opened its mouth and released a perfect stream of golden flame, controlled, precise, beautiful. The other hatchlings followed suit, their fires burning brighter and steadier than before. Harry smiled, a warmth spreading through his chest that had nothing to do with the summer sun. Amazing, came a voice from behind him. You taught them in seconds what takes keepers months to achieve. Harry turned to find Charlie Weasley approaching, his red hair tousled by the wind. The older boy carried a basket of fresh meat, which he set down beside Harry with a grunt. They're smart, Harry said, shrugging. They just needed someone to show them how. Charlie shook his head in wonder. You have a gift, Harry. A real gift. I've been working with dragons for 3 years, and I've never seen anything like it. Harry's cheeks flushed with embarrassment. He still wasn't used to praise. The Dursleys had never given him anything but criticism, and the Dragon Keepers, though kind, often regarded him with a mixture of awe and fear. It's not a gift, Harry said quietly. It's just, the bond. Ferox showed me how to feel the dragons. How to understand them. Anyone could do it if they tried. Charlie snorted. I've tried. Believe me, I've tried. Dragons aren't easy to understand. They're stubborn, proud, and dangerous. They don't let just anyone into their hearts. Harry looked at the hatchlings, who had abandoned their training to investigate the basket of meat. They clustered around Charlie, nuzzling his hands with their snouts, their eyes bright with curiosity. They trust you, Harry observed. They trust you, Charlie corrected. They're only comfortable with me because you're here. If you left, they'd be wary again. Harry didn't know what to say to that. He'd grown so accustomed to the dragon's acceptance that he'd almost forgotten how unusual it was. Most humans, even dragon keepers, couldn't approach a wild dragon without risking their lives. But Harry could walk into any enclosure, any cave, any nest, and the dragons would welcome him like one of their own. It was a power he still didn't fully understand. The Keepers Council, debating Harry's future. In the reserve's main hall, a heated debate was taking place. Dmitry Volkov sat at the head of a long oak table, his weathered face creased with worry. Around him sat the reserve senior keepers, seasoned dragon experts from across Europe, each with decades of experience. They'd been summoned to discuss the most pressing issue facing the reserve, Harry Potter. The boy is a liability, argued Keeper Larson, a grizzled Norwegian with scars covering his forearms. The shadow hunters know he's here. They attacked once, they'll attack again. Every day we keep him, we endanger everyone in this reserve. We can't just turn him over to the ministry, Keeper Martinez countered, her voice sharp with indignation. You know what they'll do to him. He's not a criminal. He's a child. A child with a bond to a Hungarian Horntail, Larson said. A child who breathes fire and commands dragons. That's not a child. That's a weapon. Enough, Dmitry said, his voice cutting through the argument like a blade. We are not discussing whether to keep Harry. We are discussing how to keep him safe. Larson leaned back, his expression sour. And what exactly do you propose, head keeper? We can't fight off an army of shadow hunters. We're dragon keepers, not soldiers. We don't have to fight them, Dmitry said. We have to hide him. There are places in the reserve where no one would think to look. Ancient chambers, sealed vaults, tunnels that haven't been opened in centuries. We can keep Harry hidden until he's strong enough to protect himself. He's 7 years old, Larson said flatly. How strong can he possibly become? Dmitry's eyes flickered with a knowing light. Stronger than you imagine, Keeper Larson. I've seen the boy train. I've seen him communicate with dragons. I've seen his magical core grow brighter by the day. He's not just a child. He's the Dragon Lord. And when the time comes, he will be the most powerful wizard of his generation. The room fell silent. The keepers exchanged uneasy glances. They'd all heard the legends of the Dragon Lords, the ancient wizard kings who'd commanded armies of dragons. Most had dismissed them as fairy tales, the stuff of children's stories. But Harry's existence had breathed new life into those old myths. What makes you so sure he's the Dragon Lord? Martinez asked quietly. Dmitry reached into his pocket and withdrew a small parchment, yellowed with age. He unfolded it carefully, revealing a faded illustration of a wizard surrounded by dragons. The wizard's face was obscured by shadow, but the dragons were unmistakable, the same species that now lived in the reserve. I found this in the vault beneath the reserve, Dmitry said. It's a prophecy, written by the last Dragon Lord before he vanished. It speaks of a child of fire and lightning, bonded to the Queen of Flames. It describes Harry's arrival in perfect detail. The apparition. The bond. The fire breathing. Everything. He paused, letting the words sink in. The prophecy also speaks of the shadow hunters, Dmitry continued. It says they will rise again, and the Dragon Lord will face them in a war that will decide the fate of all dragons. Harry is not a weapon, Keeper Larson. He's a king. And our duty is to protect him until he's ready to lead. Larson was silent for a long moment. Then, slowly, he nodded. I don't believe in prophecies, he said. But I've seen what the boy can do. And I've never seen a child so loved by dragons. If he's not the Dragon Lord, I don't know what else he could be. Dmitry allowed himself a small smile. Then it settled. We'll keep Harry hidden. We'll train him, protect him, and prepare him for what's coming. #the training begins, Harry's education in magic. In the weeks that followed, Harry's training intensified. Eldrick Thornwood had taken over Harry's magical education, and the old wizard was relentless in his lessons. Harry spent hours each day learning to control his power, to channel his magic through the dragon bond, to weave spells that had been lost to history. Magic is not just incantations and wand movements, Eldrick explained one afternoon. For the Dragon Lords, magic was an extension of their very being. They didn't cast spells, they became the spells. Harry frowned, trying to understand. How do I become a spell? Eldrick smiled. Close your eyes. Feel the fire in your chest, the dragon fire. Now, let it flow through your veins. Let it fill your mind. When you open your eyes, the fire will do what you command. Harry did as he was told. He closed his eyes, focusing on the warmth that had become as familiar as his own heartbeat. The fire responded eagerly, surging through his body with a life of its own. Harry could feel it in his fingertips, his toes, the tips of his hair. When he opened his eyes, his hands were glowing with golden light. Now, Eldrick said, reach out with your fire. Touch the rock in front of you. Feel its shape, its weight, its composition. Harry extended his hand, and the fire obeyed. Golden tendrils of light curled from his fingers, wrapping around the stone in a gentle embrace. Harry felt the rock as if it were part of him, its texture, its temperature, its very essence. Beautiful, Eldrick whispered. You're a natural, Harry. The old magic runs strong in you. Harry pulled his hand back, and the fire receded, leaving his skin tingling with residual warmth. What else can I do? More than you can imagine, Eldrick said. The Dragon Lords had powers that would make modern wizards weep with envy. You can shape-shift, though that requires years of practice. You can control the elements through dragon magic. You can heal, communicate, and even command the dead. Harry's eyes widened. Command the dead. In a manner of speaking, Eldrick said. Dragons are guardians of the veil between worlds. They can speak to spirits, guide them to the afterlife. As a dragon lord, you share that gift. Harry shuddered. He didn't like the idea of talking to dead people. But he knew he couldn't pick and choose his powers. He had to accept them all, embrace them, and learn to use them for good. ## The bond deepens, Ferox's maternal instincts. Late one night, Harry found himself unable to sleep. He slipped out of his cot and made his way to Ferox's enclosure, seeking comfort in the dragon's warmth. Ferox was awake when he arrived, her golden eyes gleaming in the darkness. She'd been expecting him, she always seemed to know when he needed her. You are troubled, she said, her voice rumbling through his mind. Harry climbed onto her back, settling between her massive shoulder blades. I'm afraid, he admitted. Afraid of what I'm becoming. Afraid of the shadow hunters. Afraid I won't be strong enough. Ferox let out a low rumble of reassurance. You are stronger than you know, little one. I have seen the fire in your heart. I have felt the power in your soul. You are destined for greatness, *. But what if I fail? Harry whispered. What if I let everyone down? Then you will try again, Ferox said simply. Failure is not the end. It is merely a lesson. The Dragon Lords did not become great overnight. They stumbled, they fell, and they rose again. You will do the same, *. Harry pressed his face against her warm scales, feeling the steady beat of her heart. I love you, Ferox. You're the only one who's ever loved me. Ferox's voice softened with emotion. And I love you, my child. You are my heart, my joy, my reason for living. I would burn the world to keep you safe, *. Harry smiled, a tear sliding down his cheek. I don't want you to burn the world. I just want you to stay with me. Always, Ferox promised. I will never leave you. ## The Dragon's Wisdom, Lessons from the Ancient Ones. As Harry grew older, he began to understand that Ferox was more than just a dragon. She was a repository of ancient knowledge, carrying within her the memories of her ancestors. Through their bond, she could share these memories, giving Harry glimpses of a world long gone. One evening, she showed him the fall of the Dragon Lords. Harry found himself standing in a great hall, surrounded by wizards and dragons. The wizards wore armor of dragon scale, and the dragons, massive, magnificent beasts, watched with eyes that held the weight of centuries. "What is this place?" Harry asked. "The Dragon Court," Ferox said. The seat of the Dragon Lord's power. This is where they gathered to rule, to judge, to unite the magical world. Harry watched as a tall wizard with silver hair rose from a throne of fire and bone. He was ancient, his face lined with centuries of wisdom, but his eyes burned with the same golden fire that Harry now carried. "I am Aleph," the wizard said, his voice echoing through the hall. "First among the Dragon Lords. Keeper of the crown. Protector of the sacred flame." The dragons roared in recognition, their cries shaking the very foundations of the hall. "Today, we face a new threat," Aleph continued. "The Shadow Hunters have grown bold. They are gathering in the north, plotting our destruction. We must strike first, before they have a chance to launch their attack." A murmuring spread through the assembled wizards. Some nodded in agreement, others looked uncertain. "My lord," a young woman said, stepping forward. "Is this wise? The Shadow Hunters are not our only enemies. We have made peace with the goblins, the centaurs, the mere people. If we go to war, we may alienate our allies." Aleph's expression darkened. "The Shadow Hunters will not stop with us. They will destroy every magical creature, every dragon, every wizard who defies them. We must fight now, or we will perish." The woman bowed her head. "As my lord commands." Harry watched the scene unfold, feeling the tension in the air. He knew this was a pivotal moment, the moment when the Dragon Lords had chosen war over diplomacy, and it had led to their downfall. "What happened next?" Harry asked Ferox. "Betrayal," Ferox said, her voice heavy with sorrow. One of Aleph's closest advisors was a shadow hunter in disguise. He poisoned Aleph's dragon, shattered the bond, and unleashed the hunters upon us. The Dragon Lords fell, one by one. Their kingdoms crumbled. Their dragons fled. And the world forgot they had ever existed. Harry felt a cold chill run down his spine. Was Aleph killed? "No," Ferox said. He survived, but he was broken. His dragon was dead, his bond destroyed. He retreated into the shadows, vowing to wait for the one who would restore the Dragon Lords. He's been waiting ever since. Harry sat in silence, processing the weight of what Ferox had shown him. The Dragon Lords had been betrayed by someone they trusted, and that betrayal had cost them everything. Who was the traitor? Harry asked. Ferox's voice grew cold. His brother, Draven. The first shadow hunter. He was consumed by jealousy, hatred, and a thirst for power. He wanted the dragon crown for himself, but Aleph was the chosen one. So Draven destroyed everything his brother had built. Harry felt a surge of anger. That's terrible. How could someone betray their own family? Ambition is a poison, Ferox said. It corrupts the heart and blinds the soul. But you are not like Draven, Harry. You have no ambition for power. You have only the desire to protect those you love. That is what makes you worthy of the Dragon Lord's legacy. Harry nodded, a new resolve hardening in his chest. I'll never be like him. I'll never let ambition corrupt me. I'll protect the dragons, no matter what. Ferox rumbled with approval. I believe you, little one. I believe you. Hashtag the emergence of powers, Harry's growing abilities. By the time Harry was 8, his powers had become impossible to ignore. He could breathe fire with ease now, controlling the intensity and duration of his flames with a thought. He could communicate with any dragon, regardless of species or temperament. And his strength and endurance were superhuman, allowing him to perform feats that would have been impossible for a boy his age. But there were other powers, stranger powers, that were only just beginning to emerge. One afternoon, Harry was playing with the Golden Emperor hatchlings when he felt a strange tingling in his skin. Before he could react, he felt his body change, stretching, shifting, reshaping. When he looked down, he saw that his arms had turned into golden wings, his body had elongated, and his skin had become covered in scales. He'd shape-shifted for the first time. Harry panicked, trying to change back, but his new form was disorienting. He couldn't move properly, couldn't control his limbs. The hatchlings, sensing his distress, surrounded him and began to nuzzle his face, their tiny flames warming his scales. "Calm yourself," one of them said. *, you are safe. Let the change flow through you, *. Harry took a deep breath, focusing on the bond that connected him to the dragons. He felt his panic subside, replaced by a sense of peace. Slowly, his body began to shift back to its human form, the wings receding, the scales fading. When he was fully human again, Harry collapsed to the ground, gasping with exhaustion. "Harry!" Charlie shouted, running toward him. "Are you okay? I saw you change. I saw your body become." "I'm fine," Harry said, his voice shaky. I didn't expect that to happen." Charlie knelt beside him, his eyes wide with concern. "You changed shape, Harry. You turned into a dragon. That's incredible." Harry shook his head. "It was scary. I couldn't control it. What if I'd hurt someone?" Charlie put a hand on his shoulder. "You didn't hurt anyone. You just surprised yourself. The more you practice, the easier it'll be to control." Harry nodded, though he wasn't convinced. Shape-shifting was terrifying. It made him feel like he was losing himself, losing his identity. What if one day he couldn't change back? What if he was trapped as a dragon forever? "You will not be trapped," Ferox said, her voice warm and reassuring. *, the power is yours to command. You control it, not the other way around. Practice, and you will master it, *. Harry took a deep breath. "Okay. I'll try." #The political landscape, wizards learn of Harry's existence. Despite Dimitri's best efforts, news of Harry's existence eventually leaked beyond the reserve. It started with a minor incident, a dragon keeper who'd gotten drunk and bragged to a friend about the dragon boy living in the reserve. The friend had told another friend, and the rumors had spread until they'd reached the ears of the British Ministry of Magic. The ministry sent an investigator, a stern-faced witch named Amelia Bones, to verify the rumors. Dimitri had no choice but to allow the investigation, fearing that refusing would only make things worse. Amelia was shocked by what she found. Harry's bond with Ferox was unlike anything she'd ever seen. His powers were undeniable. And his knowledge of dragons far surpassed that of any adult keeper. "He's a remarkable child," Amelia said to Dimitri after her investigation. "Truly remarkable. But his existence raises serious questions. How did he end up here? Why wasn't he reported to the ministry? And what exactly is his relationship with the dragons?" Dimitri chose his words carefully. Harry operated here accidentally when he was 5. He was badly abused by his guardians and fled in a moment of fear. Ferox bonded with him, and we decided to keep him hidden until we could determine the extent of his powers. Amelia frowned. "Abused? By whom?" "The Dursleys, his aunt and uncle," Dimitri said. "They're muggles, I believe." Harry was subjected to severe neglect and physical punishment. "I have evidence, if you wish to see it." Amelia's expression hardened. "I'll need to see that evidence." The ministry takes child abuse seriously, even in cases involving magical children. Dimitri nodded, relieved. "Of course. I'll provide everything you need." The investigation dragged on for weeks, but in the end, Amelia's report was favorable. The ministry declared that Harry had been a victim of neglect and that the Dragon Reserve had acted appropriately in protecting him. However, they also demanded that Harry be registered as a magical child and that his education be supervised by ministry-approved tutors. It was a compromise, but Dimitri was satisfied. Harry would remain at the reserve, hidden from the shadow hunters, with a ministry-approved cover story. As far as the outside world was concerned, Harry Potter was an orphan dragon keeper's apprentice, not the Dragon Lord. ## Harry's first friend, Charlie Weasley's bond. Throughout all the chaos, Charlie Weasley had remained Harry's closest human friend. Charlie was 16 now, nearly an adult, but he'd never stopped treating Harry like a younger brother. He'd taught Harry to read and write, to use basic spells, to navigate the complex social norms of wizarding society. And he'd always been there to listen, to comfort, to provide a human anchor in Harry's increasingly draconic life. "Can you tell me about your family?" Harry asked one afternoon, as they watched the dragons soar through the sunset sky. Charlie smiled. "They're loud, chaotic, and sometimes a bit overwhelming. But I love them. There are 7 kids in my family, all of us with red hair and a knack for getting into trouble." Harry's eyes widened. 7. That's a lot. "Tell me about it," Charlie said, laughing. "We're always fighting over the bathroom, the dinner table, and the quaffle. But we do anything for each other. That's what family is, isn't it? Being there when it counts." Harry looked down at his hands. "I don't have a family." "Not really. The Dursleys don't count, and my parents died when I was a baby. Sometimes I wonder what it would be like to have siblings, to have people who love you unconditionally." Charlie put a hand on his shoulder. "You've got us, Harry. The Keepers, the Dragons, Ferox, we're your family now. And when you're ready, you'll have a place in my family too. Mum would love you. She's always wanted another child to fuss over." Harry felt a lump form in his throat. "You really mean that?" "Of course I do," Charlie said, grinning. "You're my best friend, Harry. Nothing will ever change that." Harry smiled, a real smile, the kind he'd never been able to show the Dursleys. For the first time in his life, he felt like he belonged somewhere, not just with the dragons, but with people who truly cared about him. ## The hidden threat, Draco's suspicion. Harry's life at the reserve was peaceful for the next few months, but that peace was shattered by an unexpected visitor, Draco Malfoy. Draco was the son of Lucius Malfoy, a wealthy and influential Death Eater who'd somehow avoided imprisonment after Voldemort's fall. Draco had been sent to the reserve as part of a learning experience about magical creatures, though Harry suspected the real reason was to spy on the Keepers. "Is it true you talk to dragons?" Draco asked Harry during a tour of the enclosures. Harry eyed the blonde boy warily. "I don't know what you're talking about." Draco sneered. "Don't play dumb, Potter. Everyone knows you've got a bond with the Horntail. My father's been hearing rumors for years. He wanted to come investigate himself, but the ministry wouldn't let him." Harry felt a cold chill run down his spine. Lucius Malfoy was a powerful figure. If he was interested in Harry, it could only mean trouble. "I don't have a bond," Harry said flatly. "I'm just good with dragons. It's not that unusual." Draco's eyes narrowed. "You're lying. I can see it in your eyes. You've got the same golden glow that the ancient dragon lords had. My father told me all about them. They were powerful wizards who ruled over dragons. You could be one of them, couldn't you?" Harry said nothing. He knew that showing emotion would only confirm Draco's suspicions. Draco smiled, a cold, cruel smile. "I'll be keeping an eye on you, Potter. The Dark Lord will be interested to hear about your powers." Harry's heart raced. Voldemort? What did Voldemort have to do with any of this? But before he could ask, Draco turned and walked away, his robe swishing behind him like a viper's tail. ## The Dragon's Warning, a vision of the future. That night, Harry couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about Draco's words, his cold smile, his mention of the Dark Lord. Ferox felt his distress and called him to her side. He lay against her warmth, her massive heart beating beneath his cheek, and tried to calm his racing mind. "Tell me what troubles you," Ferox said. Harry told her about Draco, about the Malfoy family, about the rumor that Voldemort was interested in him. Ferox listened in silence, her golden eyes glinting with ancient wisdom. When Harry was done, she let out a low rumble of understanding. "The Dark Lord is a threat, but not the only one," she said. There are forces at work in the world, forces that seek to control the Dragon Lord's power. You must be vigilant, Harry. Trust no one completely. Not even those who seem kind, *. Harry felt a chill. "You don't trust the Keepers." "I trust the Keepers," Ferox said. But they are not the only ones who know of your existence. The Shadow Hunters, the Malfoys, the Ministry, there are many who would seek to use you. You must learn to protect yourself, to hide your true nature, to strike when the time is right, *. Harry nodded, though he felt overwhelmed by the weight of her words. He was just a child. How was he supposed to fight against so many enemies? "You will not fight them alone," Ferox said, answering his unspoken question. You will have me. You will have the dragons. And you will have friends who will stand by your side. Remember that, Harry. Remember that you are not alone, *. Harry closed his eyes, letting her warmth envelop him. "I'll remember, Ferox. I promise." #The Vault Secret, a Dragon's Treasure. Harry's journey into the Dragon Lord's vault had only just begun. In the weeks that followed, Harry and Eldrick spent countless hours exploring the ancient chamber, cataloging its treasures, and uncovering its secrets. They found weapons that hummed with dragon magic, scrolls that contained lost spells, and amulets that enhanced the bond between wizard and dragon. But the greatest discovery was yet to come. At the very back of the vault, behind a wall of solid rock, Harry found a hidden alcove. Inside was a pedestal, and on the pedestal sat a small, unassuming box of dark wood. Harry reached out to touch it, and the box flew open, revealing a simple crown of silver and gold. It was unadorned, unpretentious, but it hummed with power that made Harry's teeth ache. "The dragon crown," Eldrick breathed. "It's real. It's actually real." Harry hesitated, his hand hovering over the crown. "Should I put it on?" Eldrick's expression was troubled. "The crown chooses its wearer, Harry. If it chooses you, you'll know. If it doesn't, it could be dangerous." Harry swallowed hard. "I have to try." He reached out, his fingers brushing against the cool metal. The moment he touched it, the crown blazed with golden light, and Harry felt a surge of power that nearly knocked him off his feet. The crown had chosen him. "Dragon Lord," a voice whispered in his mind. "Welcome home." Harry pulled his hand back, gasping for breath. The crown glowed softly, its gold and silver surfaces shimmering with an inner light. "It chose you," Eldrick said, his voice filled with awe. "You are the true Dragon Lord, Harry. The crown has acknowledged you." Harry looked at the crown, feeling its warmth in his chest. He knew, deep down, that this was the beginning of a new chapter in his life. The Dragon Lord's legacy was now his, and he would bear it with honor. The Hunter's Gambit, an attack on the reserve. The Shadow Hunters had not forgotten Harry. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, a massive army of dark wizards descended on the reserve. They came in a wave of shadow and fire, their wands blazing with deadly light. Harry woke to the sound of explosions and dragons roaring in fury. He scrambled out of his cot, grabbing his wand and running toward the commotion. Ferox was already in the fray, her massive body blocking the entrance to the main enclosure. She breathed fire at the attackers, her claws tearing through their defenses. But there were too many of them, far too many. Harry! Charlie shouted, running toward him. We have to get you out of here. I'm not leaving. Harry screamed. Ferox needs me. Charlie grabbed his arm, trying to pull him away. There's nothing you can do, Harry. You're just a child. Harry's eyes blazed with golden fire. I'm the Dragon Lord. He turned to face the attackers, his heart pounding with rage. The dragons responded to his call, swarming around him in a protective circle. Ferox let out a roar of defiance, and Harry felt her power surging through him. Attack, he shouted, his voice carrying through the night. The dragons obeyed, their flames illuminating the battlefield. Harry commanded them with thought and gesture, guiding them through the chaos. For the first time, he felt like a true dragon lord, a leader, a warrior, a king. But even his powers weren't enough to stop the hunters. They fought with a desperate fury, determined to capture Harry at any cost. We have to go. Charlie shouted, grabbing Harry's arm again. Now. Harry looked at Ferox, who was bleeding from a wound on her flank. Her eyes met his, and she sent him a message of love and reassurance. Go, little one. I will find you. I will always find you, Harry's heart shattered, but he knew she was right. He had to survive. He had to live to fight another day. All right, he said, his voice breaking. Let's go. They fled into the tunnels, leaving Ferox and the dragons to hold the line. Harry could hear the sounds of battle fading behind them, but the pain in his heart was unbearable. Ferox was out there, fighting for him. And he was running away. But as the tunnels swallowed them, Harry made a silent vow, he would never run again. He would become strong enough to face the shadow hunters, strong enough to protect everyone he loved. And when the time came, he would burn them all. End of Chapter 2. Chapter 3, Raised Among Dragons. The Aftermath, a reserve in ruins. The attack had left the Romanian dragon reserve in ruins. Harry stood at the edge of what had once been the main enclosure, his small hands clenched into fists at his sides. The ground was scorched, the buildings were crumbling, and the air still carried the acrid smell of dragon fire and dark magic. Dead dragons lay scattered across the landscape, some familiar, some not, their bodies broken and burned beyond recognition. He'd been hiding in the tunnels for 3 days now, moving deeper into the mountain with each passing hour, trying to escape the hunters who still searched for him. Charlie and a handful of keepers had accompanied him, their faces grim with exhaustion and grief. They'd lost so many. So many dragons. So many friends. Harry, Charlie said, his voice gentle. We need to keep moving. They're still out there. Harry didn't respond. His eyes were fixed on a pile of ash and bone that had once been a young Welsh green. He remembered that dragon, she'd been a hatchling when he'd first arrived at the reserve, barely old enough to fly. He'd helped her learn to breathe fire, to hunt, to trust humans. Now she was gone. I should have been stronger, Harry whispered. I should have been able to protect them. Charlie knelt beside him, his hand resting on Harry's shoulder. You're 7 years old, Harry. You did everything you could. It wasn't enough. Harry's voice cracked with emotion. Ferox is still out there, fighting. She could be dead for all I know. And I ran away. I ran away. Like a coward. Charlie pulled Harry into a hug, his arms wrapping around the boy's thin shoulders. You ran away because you had to survive. That's not cowardice, that's wisdom. Ferox wanted you to live. She told you to go. Remember that. Harry buried his face in Charlie's shoulder, hot tears streaming down his cheeks. He'd never cried like this before, not in front of anyone, not even in front of the dragons. But the grief was too much, too overwhelming. She's all I have, Harry sobbed. She's the only one who's ever loved me. You have me, Charlie said firmly. You have the keepers. You have the dragons who survived. You are not alone, Harry. You will never be alone. Harry clung to Charlie, drawing comfort from his warmth. He didn't know how long they stayed like that, minutes, hours, maybe longer. But eventually, the tears stopped, and Harry felt a strange calm settle over him. He would survive this. He would become strong enough to protect the ones he loved. And he would make the shadow hunters pay for what they'd done. #the journey to safety, finding a new home. The tunnels beneath the reserve stretched for miles, a labyrinth of ancient passages carved by dragons long before humans had discovered the region. Harry and his companions traveled for days, moving deeper into the earth, following the faint trails left by generations of dragons. Dmitry Volkov led the group, his weathered face set in grim determination. He'd lost his home, his life's work, and many of his closest friends in the attack. But he hadn't lost his purpose. As long as Harry survived, there was hope. We're heading to the sanctuary of the Ancient Ones, Dmitry explained during a rest stop. It's a hidden valley in the Carpathian Mountains, protected by ancient enchantments. No one can find it unless they know the way. What's there? Harry asked, his voice still hoarse from crying. A colony of dragons, Dmitry said. Wild dragons, untouched by human interference. They've lived there for centuries, isolated from the world. They'll be able to protect you, Harry. They'll keep you safe. Harry nodded, though he wasn't sure how any place could be safe. The shadow hunters had found him in the most secure reserve in Europe. What was to stop them from finding him in this valley? Faith, a voice whispered in his mind. You must have faith, little one. Harry's heart leaped. Ferox? Is that you, ? I am here, Ferox said, her voice warm with love. I am wounded, but I am alive. I am following your trail through the tunnels. I will find you, Harry's eyes filled with tears again, but this time they were tears of joy. I thought you were dead. I thought I'd lost you, You will never lose me, Ferox said. I promised you, Harry. I will never leave you. And I keep my promises, Harry smiled, a genuine smile that reached his eyes. For the first time in days, he felt hope. Arrival at the sanctuary, a hidden paradise. The sanctuary of the Ancient Ones was everything Harry had hoped for and more. It was a hidden valley, nestled deep in the Carpathian Mountains, surrounded by peaks so tall that their snow-capped summits pierced the clouds. The valley floor was covered in lush green grass and wildflowers, with a crystal-clear river winding through the center. And everywhere, there were dragons. They flew overhead in great flocks, their scales glittering in the sunlight. They lounged on the hillsides, basking in the warmth of the sun. They swam in the river, their serpentine bodies cutting through the water like living jewels. And they all turned to look at Harry as he entered the valley. Harry felt their attention like a physical weight, pressing down on him from all sides. But it wasn't hostile, it was curious, inquisitive, even welcoming. They could sense the bond, the power, the Dragon Lord's presence. One of the dragons, a massive, silver-scaled beast with eyes like sapphires, detached itself from the flock and descended to the ground in front of Harry. It lowered its head, studying him with ancient, knowing eyes. The young flame has come, the dragon said, its voice resonant and powerful. Welcome, little one. We have been waiting for you, Harry stared up at the magnificent creature, his heart pounding. You know who I am. We have known since the moment you bonded with the Queen of Fire, the silver dragon said. The world trembles at the awakening of the Dragon Lord. And we, the Ancient Ones, have prepared for your arrival, Harry looked around the valley, at the hundreds of dragons watching him with reverence. What do you want from me? Nothing you are not already willing to give, the silver dragon said. Protection. Leadership. Unity. We have been scattered for too long, hiding in the shadows of a world that has forgotten us. But with you, we can rise again. We can reclaim our place in the world. Harry felt overwhelmed by the weight of the dragon's words. He was just a child, a scared, lonely child who'd spent most of his life hiding in a cupboard. How was he supposed to lead a race of dragons? You are more than you know, the silver dragon said, answering his unspoken thoughts. The power of the Dragon Lord flows through your veins. You are destined for greatness. Do not let fear hold you back. Harry took a deep breath, straightening his shoulders. I won't. I promise. Life in the valley, Harry's new routine. Life in the sanctuary was different from life in the reserve. Here, Harry was not just a boy who could talk to dragons, he was their future, their hope, their king. The dragons treated him with a reverence that made him uncomfortable, bowing their heads whenever he passed, offering him gifts of food and treasure. But there was also warmth and love. The dragons were a family, bound together by bonds of blood and magic. They cared for each other, protected each other, and shared everything they had. And they included Harry in that family without hesitation. Harry spent his days learning from the Ancient Ones. They taught him the history of the Dragon Lords, the secrets of dragon magic, and the ways of the wild dragons. They showed him how to heal wounds with dragon fire, how to track prey through the mountains, how to speak the ancient language of dragons with perfect fluency. And they helped him train his powers. Under their guidance, Harry learned to control his fire breathing, to shape-shift at will, and to channel his magic through his bond with Ferox. You are growing stronger every day, Ferox said one evening, as they lay together under the stars. I can feel the power building within you. Soon, you will be ready to face the Shadow Hunters. Harry nodded, his jaw set with determination. I won't let them hurt anyone else. I won't let them destroy what we've built. That is the spirit of a true Dragon Lord, Ferox said, her voice filled with pride. But remember, Harry, power is not just about strength. It's about wisdom, compassion, and the courage to do what's right. Never forget that. I won't, Harry promised. I'll never forget. The Dragon Council, Harry's first test. A month after Harry's arrival at the sanctuary, the Ancient Ones called a council. It was a grand affair, with hundreds of dragons gathering in the heart of the valley. Harry stood at the center of the circle, his heart pounding with nervous anticipation. The silver dragon, whose name was Aurelius, took his place at Harry's side. The Dragon Lord has come to us, Aurelius announced, his voice echoing across the valley. He is young, but he is strong. He carries the fire of his bond with the Queen of Fire, and the ancient power of the Dragon Lords flows through his veins. He has come to lead us into a new age. The dragons roared their approval, their voices shaking the ground beneath Harry's feet. But first, Aurelius continued, he must prove himself. He must face the trial of the Ancient Ones, a test of his worthiness to lead. Only then will he be fully accepted as our Lord. Harry looked at Aurelius, his eyes wide. What is the trial? Aurelius's eyes glowed with an inner light. You must descend into the heart of the mountain, the place where the first Dragon Lord made his bond with the dragons. There, you will face your greatest fear. If you survive, you will be recognized as our leader. If you fail, you will die. Harry swallowed hard. Die. The word echoed in his mind, sending cold chills down his spine. But he knew he couldn't refuse. The dragons had given him so much, protection, love, a sense of belonging. He couldn't let them down. I'll do it, Harry said, his voice steady despite his fear. I'll face the trial. The dragons roared their approval once more, and Harry felt a surge of determination. He would survive this. He would prove himself worthy of the Dragon Lord's legacy. And he would never let anyone down again. Hashtag the heart of the mountain, facing the darkness. The heart of the mountain was a cavern deep beneath the valley, accessible only through a narrow tunnel that wound through the mountain's core. Harry descended alone, his only light the soft golden glow of his own dragon fire. The air grew colder as he descended, and the darkness pressed in around him like a suffocating blanket. Harry could hear his own heartbeat, loud in the silence, and his breath came in short, quick gasps. He was scared. Terrified, really. But he didn't stop. Finally, the tunnel opened into a vast chamber, filled with glowing crystals that cast strange, shifting shadows on the walls. In the center of the chamber was a pool of water, so clear and still that it looked like glass. Harry approached the pool, his feet echoing on the stone floor. He looked down into the water, and his reflection stared back at him. But it wasn't his reflection. Harry gasped and stumbled back, his heart racing. The reflection in the water was not a 7-year-old boy, it was a man, tall and powerful, with eyes like molten gold and a crown of fire on his head. The man smiled, and his voice echoed through the chamber. Well done, young one. You have found your way to me, Harry's mouth went dry. Who are you? I am Aleph, the man said. The first Dragon Lord. I have been waiting for you, Harry Potter. Waiting to help you fulfill your destiny, Harry stared at the reflection, his mind reeling. Aleph, the legendary Dragon Lord, the one who'd been betrayed by his brother, the one who'd watched his civilization crumble. He was here, in the heart of the mountain, speaking to Harry through the water. Why me? Harry asked. Why did you choose me? I did not choose you, Aleph said. The dragons did. They sensed the power in you, the goodness in you, the strength in you. You are the one they have been waiting for. And I am here to help you, Harry felt a strange warmth spread through his chest. Help me how? I will teach you, Aleph said. I will show you the secrets of the Dragon Lords, the magic that has been lost to time. I will prepare you for the battle to come. But first, you must face your greatest fear, Harry's blood ran cold. What is my greatest fear? Aleph's expression grew serious. Your greatest fear is not the Shadow Hunters. It is not Voldemort or the Death Eaters. Your greatest fear is being alone. Being abandoned. Being unloved. You have carried this fear since you were a child, and it has held you back. To become the Dragon Lord, you must let it go, Harry felt tears prick his eyes. Aleph was right. His greatest fear was being alone, alone in the cupboard, alone in the world, alone with no one to care for him. How do I let it go? Harry whispered. You accept that you are not alone, Aleph said. You have Ferox. You have Charlie and the Keepers. You have the dragons of the sanctuary. You have me. You are surrounded by love, Harry, even when you can't see it. Hold on to that. Let it fill the emptiness inside you, Harry closed his eyes, focusing on the bonds that connected him to the dragons and the people he loved. He felt Ferox's warmth, Charlie's friendship, the dragon's loyalty. He felt Aleph's guidance, ancient and wise. And then, something shifted inside him. The emptiness in his heart began to fill, replaced by a warmth that spread through his entire being. When Harry opened his eyes, he was different. Stronger. More whole. The reflection in the pool had changed, too. Now it was Harry himself, his eyes glowing with golden fire, his expression one of calm determination. You have passed the trial, Aleph said, his voice filled with pride. You are ready to lead, Harry Potter. The Dragon Lord has awakened, Hashtag the return to the valley, a new beginning. When Harry emerged from the heart of the mountain, he was greeted by the sight of every dragon in the sanctuary waiting for him. They bowed their heads as he passed, their eyes filled with reverence and love. The Dragon Lord returns, Aurelius announced. Asterisk, he has passed the trial. He has proven his worth, asterisk. The dragons roared their approval, and Harry felt a surge of joy that made his heart soar. Ferox pushed through the crowd, her massive body moving with surprising grace. She was still wounded, her flank bandaged with a poultice made of dragon scale and herbs, but her eyes were bright with happiness. "My little one," she said, her voice warm and loving. Asterisk, you have done well. I am so proud of you, asterisk. Harry rushed to her, wrapping his arms around her snout. I missed you, Ferox. I was so scared. I know, Ferox said. Asterisk, but you were brave. You faced the darkness and came out stronger. That is the mark of a true Dragon Lord, asterisk. Harry smiled, pressing his forehead against her scales. Thank you for believing in me. I will always believe in you, Ferox said. Always. Hashtag the training intensifies, preparing for war. With the trial behind him, Harry's training intensified. Aleph, through the pool in the heart of the mountain, taught Harry the secret arts of the Dragon Lords, spells that had been lost for centuries, techniques for controlling dragon fire, methods for strengthening the bond between wizard and dragon. Harry practiced for hours every day, pushing himself to his limits. He learned to shape-shift into a dragon at will, his golden form growing stronger and more controlled with each attempt. He learned to heal wounds with fire, to command the elements with dragon magic, and to communicate with dragons across vast distances. He also learned to fight. The dragons taught him combat techniques, showing him how to use his fire, his claws, and his bond with Ferox to devastating effect. They showed him how to sense an enemy's presence, how to anticipate attacks, and how to turn an opponent's strength against them. The shadow hunters are powerful, Aurelius said during one training session. They have dark magic, powerful artifacts, and centuries of experience. But you have something they don't have, the bond with the dragons. Use it. Trust it. Let it guide you. Harry nodded, his jaw set with determination. I will. Hashtag the bond with the Ancient Ones, a new family. As the months passed, Harry grew closer to the dragons of the sanctuary. They were not just allies or teachers, they were his family. They celebrated his victories, comforted him in his sorrows, and shared their wisdom with him freely. Harry learned their names, their histories, their dreams. There was Aurelius, the silver dragon who had welcomed him to the valley. There was Ignis, a fire-breathing dragon whose flames were so hot they could melt stone. There was Aquaria, a water dragon who could control the rivers and lakes of the valley. There were dozens of others, each with their own unique abilities and personalities. And they all looked to Harry as their leader. It was a heavy burden to carry, but Harry welcomed it. For the first time in his life, he had a purpose. He was not just the unwanted orphan of the Dursleys, he was the Dragon Lord, the protector of dragons, the hope of a forgotten people. He would not let them down. Hashtag a vision of the future, the war to come. One evening, as Harry lay in the valley under the stars, he had a vision. He saw himself, older and stronger, leading an army of dragons against a horde of shadow hunters. The battle was fierce, the skies black with smoke and fire. But Harry fought with a courage that made his heart swell with pride. And then, the vision shifted. He saw Voldemort, his red eyes blazing with hatred, his wand raised to strike him down. Harry felt a surge of fear, but it quickly passed. He faced the Dark Lord with fire in his eyes and fire in his heart. I am the Dragon Lord, Harry said, his voice ringing with power. And you will not touch me or my dragons. Voldemort laughed, a cold, cruel laugh. You are nothing but a child, Potter. A pathetic, weak child. I will destroy you and take your power for myself. Harry's fire surged, filling him with strength. You will try, he said. And you will fail. The vision faded, and Harry woke with a start, his heart pounding. He knew, with absolute certainty, that the vision was not just a dream, it was a prophecy. The war was coming, and Harry would have to be ready. Hashtag the Dragon Crown's call, a new power awakens. A few weeks after his vision, Harry felt a strange pull from the heart of the mountain. He descended into the chamber, his heart pounding with anticipation. The pool was glowing, its surface rippling with golden light. Harry approached it cautiously, his hand reaching out to touch the water. The moment his fingers made contact, a surge of power shot through him. He gasped as images flooded his mind, images of the Dragon Crown, the legendary artifact that allowed the wearer to communicate with every dragon on Earth. "The crown is calling to you," Olaf's voice echoed in his mind. It is time for you to claim it, Harry. It is time for you to become the true Dragon Lord, Harry felt a rush of excitement and fear. The Dragon Crown was the most powerful artifact in the Dragon Lord's arsenal. With it, he could unite all dragons under his command. But he also knew that claiming the crown would make him a target. The Shadow Hunters, the Death Eaters, even Voldemort himself would stop at nothing to get their hands on it. "I'm ready," Harry said, his voice steady. "Tell me what to do." "The crown is hidden in the Dragon Realm," Olaf said. It is guarded by ancient enchantments and creatures of immense power. To reach it, you must travel through the realm, facing the trials that await you there, Harry nodded, his jaw set with determination. "I'll do it. I'll claim the crown and unite the dragons." "I knew you would," Olaf said, his voice filled with pride. Go, Harry. The path is waiting for you, Hashtag the dragon's farewell, a bittersweet goodbye. Before Harry left for the Dragon Realm, he said goodbye to his friends in the sanctuary. It was a tearful farewell, filled with hugs and promises to return. Charlie embraced him tightly, his eyes red with emotion. "Be careful, Harry," Charlie said. "The Dragon Realm is dangerous. There are things in there that even the Ancient Ones don't understand." "I'll be fine," Harry said, forcing a smile. "I have Ferox with me. She'll protect me." Charlie laughed, a watery, broken laugh. "Of course she will. She'd never let anything happen to you." Ferox stood beside Harry, her massive body a reassuring presence. "I will guard him with my life," she promised. "He will return, safe and whole." Harry climbed onto Ferox's back, his heart heavy with emotion. He looked around the valley one last time, at the dragons who had become his family, at the people who had become his friends. "I'll come back," Harry said. "I promise." And with that, Ferox launched herself into the sky, carrying Harry toward the Dragon Realm and the destiny that awaited him. End of Chapter 3. Chapter 4, The First. Flame. The journey to the Dragon Realm, crossing the veil. The flight to the Dragon Realm was unlike anything Harry had ever experienced. Ferox soared through the clouds, her massive wings cutting through the air with effortless grace. The sanctuary of the Ancient Ones had long since disappeared behind them, replaced by a vast expanse of mountains and forests that stretched to the horizon. But as they flew higher, the world below began to shimmer and shift, the colors bleeding together like watercolors on wet paper. "Where are we going?" Harry asked, his voice barely audible over the rush of wind. "To the Vale," Ferox replied. The boundary between the mortal world and the Dragon Realm. It can only be crossed by those who carry dragon fire in their hearts, Harry felt a strange tingling in his chest, his dragon fire responding to Ferox's words. He closed his eyes, focusing on the warmth that had become as familiar as his own heartbeat. The world around them shimmered again, and Harry felt a sudden lurch in his stomach, like falling, but sideways, through a space that didn't exist. When he opened his eyes, the world had changed. They were no longer above the mountains of Romania. Below them stretched a landscape of impossible beauty, floating islands suspended in a golden sky, waterfalls that flowed upward into clouds of crystal, forests of trees whose leaves shimmered with an inner light. And everywhere, there were dragons. Thousands of them. Tens of thousands. They filled the sky like stars, their scales glittering in every color imaginable. They flew in formation, spiraled through the air, and rested on the floating islands in great, slumbering piles. Harry's breath caught in his throat. This is the dragon realm. Yes, Ferox said, her voice filled with a reverence he'd never heard before. This is the home of our kind. The place where dragons were born, where we ruled alongside the dragon lords. It has been hidden for centuries, waiting for the one who would restore us. Harry stared at the incredible sight, his heart swelling with emotion. It's beautiful. It is, Ferox agreed. But it is also dangerous. The realm is protected by ancient magic and creatures that do not take kindly to intruders. We must be careful, Harry. We must be wise. Harry nodded, his jaw set with determination. I understand. Lead the way. #the Guardians of the Realm, a test of worth. Ferox descended toward one of the larger floating islands, a massive platform of rock and earth covered in a forest of crystalline trees. As they landed, Harry felt a strange presence, ancient, powerful, and watching. A dragon emerged from the trees, massive and beautiful, with scales of pure white that seemed to glow with an inner light. Its eyes were the color of the sky at dawn, and its voice echoed in Harry's mind like a chorus of bells. The young flame has come, the dragon said. We have been expecting you, little one. I am Celestia, guardian of the first gate. To pass, you must prove your worth. Harry dismounted from Ferox, his heart pounding. What do I need to do? You must face the guardian of the first gate, Celestia said. You must show us that your bond with the dragons is true, that your heart is pure, and that you are worthy of the Dragon Lord's legacy. If you succeed, you may pass. If you fail, you will be cast into the void. Harry swallowed hard. He'd been through trials before, but this one felt different. More dangerous. More final. Ferox stepped forward, her body positioning itself between Harry and Celestia. I will protect him, she said. He is not alone. Celestia's eyes softened. We know, Queen of Fire. We know. But this trial is for the young flame alone. He must face it without your help. Ferox hesitated, then reluctantly stepped back. Harry felt a surge of gratitude for her loyalty, but he also knew that she was right. He had to face this trial on his own. All right, Harry said, his voice steady. I'm ready. The trial of the first gate, confronting the past. The trial began without warning. Harry found himself standing in a memory that was not his own. He was in a small house, warm and cozy, with a fire crackling in the hearth. A woman with red hair and kind eyes was holding a baby in her arms, singing a lullaby in a soft, melodic voice. My little Harry, the woman whispered. My precious little boy. You are so loved, so wanted. Your father and I will always protect you. Harry felt tears prick his eyes. This was his mother. The woman who had died to save him. He'd never seen her face before, never heard her voice. And now, here she was, holding him in her arms, singing him a lullaby. The memory shifted. Now he was in a different room, dark and cold, with a man and a woman standing over a crib. They were looking at him with hatred, with disgust, with something that made Harry's blood run cold. You will not be loved here, the woman said. You will never be loved. You are a freak, a burden, a mistake. You should have died with your parents. Harry recognized the voice. It was Aunt Petunia. And the man beside her was Uncle Vernon. He wanted to scream, to fight, to run away. But he couldn't move. He was trapped, forced to relive the worst moments of his childhood. And then, a new voice spoke, a voice that was soft and gentle, yet filled with power. "Do not let the darkness consume you," the voice said. The past is behind you. You are not that child anymore. You are the Dragon Lord. You are loved. You are worthy. Harry looked up and saw a figure standing in the shadows, a tall, powerful figure with eyes like molten gold and a crown of fire on his head. It was Aleph, the first Dragon Lord. "Help me," Harry whispered. I can't do this alone." Aleph smiled, a warm, reassuring smile. "You are not alone, Harry. You have never been alone. The dragons are with you. Ferox is with you. And I am with you. All you have to do is let go of the past and embrace the future. Harry took a deep breath, letting Aleph's words wash over him. He thought of Ferox, of Charlie, of the dragons of the sanctuary. He thought of the love they'd shown him, the acceptance, the belonging. And then, the darkness shattered. Harry was back in the dragon realm, standing before Celestia. The white dragon was looking at him with approval. "You have passed the first gate," Celestia said. You have faced your past and emerged stronger. You are worthy to continue your journey. Harry felt a surge of relief. "Thank you. Thank you for giving me a chance." "It was not I who gave you a chance," Celestia said. It was you who earned it. Go, young flame. The other gates await you. #. The second gate, the heart of the dragon. The second gate was guarded by a dragon named Pyre, a creature of fire and shadow whose scales seemed to shift and change with every breath. "The young flame has come far," Pyre said, his voice a low, rumbling growl. But the next trial will test your heart. You must prove that your bond with the dragons is more than just power, it must be love, compassion, and sacrifice. Harry nodded, his heart pounding. "What do I need to do?" "You must choose," Pyre said. You have two bonded dragons, Ferox, the Queen of Fire, and Seagar, the Golden Emperor. One of them must give up their bond with you. If you choose wisely, the bond will be strengthened. If you choose poorly, the bond will be broken forever. Harry felt his stomach drop. Give up one of his bonded dragons? It was unthinkable. Ferox had been with him since he was 5 years old, the first creature to ever love him. And Seagar had hatched from the egg in the vault, his bond with Harry forged in fire and magic. "I can't choose," Harry said, his voice shaking. They're both my family." "You must choose," Pyre said, his voice relentless. "There is no other way." Harry looked at Ferox, who was watching him with her golden eyes. She looked calm, accepting, as if she already knew what he would do. "Choose me," Ferox said, her voice soft and loving. I have lived a long life, Harry. I have seen centuries of joy and sorrow. I have loved you more than anything in this world. Let me give you up so that you can fulfill your destiny. No, Harry said, shaking his head. I won't. I can't. Harry, Ferox said, her voice gentle. I am not leaving you. I will always be with you, in your heart, in your fire. But Seagar is young. He needs you. I have had my time. Let him have his. Harry felt tears streaming down his cheeks. I can't lose you, Ferox. You're my mother. You're everything. And you are everything to me, Ferox said. But being a dragon lord is about sacrifice. It's about putting the needs of your people above your own desires. This is the hardest lesson you will ever learn, Harry. Learn it well, Harry took a deep breath, his heart breaking into 1,000 pieces. I understand. I choose. I choose Tsigar. The moment the words left his mouth, Harry felt a surge of power and pain. The bond with Ferox shimmered, flickered, and then settled into something new, still strong, still loving, but no longer the same. You have chosen wisely, Pyre said. Your bond with Ferox remains, but it has changed. It is no longer a bond of need, it is a bond of love, freely given. And your bond with Tsigar has grown stronger. You have proven that you understand the heart of a dragon lord. Harry collapsed to his knees, his body racked with sobs. Ferox approached him, her massive body lowering to the ground so she could nuzzle his face with her snout. I am still here, little one, she said. I will always be here. Nothing has changed. Harry wrapped his arms around her, crying into her scales. I love you, Ferox. I love you so much. And I love you, Ferox said. Forever and always. ##The third gate, the crown's choice. The third gate was the final trial, and it was the most dangerous of all. The gate was guarded by a dragon of pure shadow, a creature so dark that it seemed to absorb the light around it. Its name was Umbra, and its voice was a whisper that echoed in Harry's mind like a cold wind. The young flame has passed the first two gates, Umbra said. But the third gate is the most perilous. You must face the dragon crown and prove yourself worthy of its power. If you succeed, the crown will choose you. If you fail, it will destroy you. Harry approached the third gate, his heart pounding. In the center of the gate was a pedestal, and on the pedestal sat the dragon crown, a simple circlet of silver and gold, glowing with an inner light. Harry reached out to touch it, but his hand stopped an inch away. He could feel the crown's power, vast and ancient, calling to him. But he could also feel its danger, its capacity to consume him if he wasn't strong enough. What do you see, Harry? Alep's voice echoed in his mind. Harry closed his eyes, letting the crown's energy wash over him. He saw visions of the past, the dragon lords in their golden age, ruling with wisdom and compassion. He saw their fall, their betrayal, their destruction. He saw the shadow hunters, the Death Eaters, the dark forces that sought to destroy everything the dragon lords had built. And he saw the future, a future where dragons and wizards lived together in peace, where the shadow hunters were defeated, where the world was safe and free. I see a world where everyone belongs, Harry whispered. A world where no one is unloved, unwanted, or forgotten. I want to build that world. I want to be the dragon lord who makes it happen. The crown's glow intensified, and Harry felt a surge of power that filled every cell of his body. The crown lifted from the pedestal, floating toward him, and settled on his head. Harry felt the world explode into light. He was connected to every dragon in the world, every dragon in the sanctuary, every dragon in the reserves, every dragon in the wild. He could feel their thoughts, their emotions, their desires. He could speak to them all at once, and they could hear him. The young flame has become the dragon lord, Umbra said. The crown has chosen him. He is the true heir to the ancient order. Harry opened his eyes, his vision now glowing with golden light. He felt stronger, more powerful, more certain of his purpose than ever before. I am the dragon lord, Harry said, his voice ringing with power. And I will protect the dragons. I will protect the world. I will make things right. The return to the sanctuary, a hero's welcome. When Harry returned to the sanctuary of the Ancient Ones, he was greeted by a hero's welcome. The dragons of the valley had felt the crown's activation. They knew that their lord had claimed his birthright, and they celebrated with a joy that shook the very foundations of the mountains. Ferox was at Harry's side, her head held high with pride. Tsigar flew overhead, his golden scales gleaming in the sunlight. Harry stood in the center of the valley, the crown on his head, feeling the love and loyalty of the dragons wash over him. You have done well, Harry, Charlie said, approaching him with tears in his eyes. You have made us all proud. Harry smiled, a genuine, heartfelt smile. "Thank you, Charlie. I couldn't have done it without you." Charlie pulled him into a hug, his arms wrapping around Harry's small shoulders. "You did this, Harry. You faced the trials, you claimed the crown, and you proved yourself worthy of being the Dragon Lord." Harry hugged him back, feeling a warmth in his chest that had nothing to do with dragon fire. "I couldn't have done it without you, Charlie. You've been my friend, my mentor, my brother. I won't forget that." Charlie pulled back, his eyes shining with emotion. "We're family, Harry. You and me. And nothing will ever change that." Harry nodded, his throat too tight for words. ### The training continues, mastering the crown's power. With the crown on his head, Harry's training entered a new phase. The crown gave him access to powers he'd never dreamed of. He could communicate with any dragon, anywhere in the world, with a single thought. He could sense their emotions, their needs, their fears. He could even guide them through his own will, commanding them to action with nothing more than a mental nudge. But the crown was also a burden. Its power was immense, and it threatened to overwhelm him if he wasn't careful. Harry spent hours each day meditating, learning to control the crown's influence, to channel its power without being consumed by it. "Power is like fire, Harry," Olaf said through the pool in the heart of the mountain. "If you control it, it serves you. If you lose control, it destroys you. Never forget that." Harry nodded, his face set with determination. "I won't forget. I'll master this power, no matter what it takes." Olaf smiled. "I know you will. You have the heart of a dragon lord, Harry. Never doubt that, *. ### A new threat emerges, the shadow hunters strike again. While Harry was training in the sanctuary, the shadow hunters were not idle. They had been watching him, waiting for the moment when he would be most vulnerable. And now, with the crown activated, they knew that they had to act quickly. The attack came at night, when the dragons of the sanctuary were resting. Harry woke to the sound of dragons roaring in fury. He scrambled out of his cot, the crown on his head, and ran to the entrance of the valley. What he saw made his blood run cold. A massive army of shadow hunters had breached the valley's defenses. They were fighting the dragons, their wands blazing with dark magic. Several dragons were already dead, their bodies lying broken on the ground. "Harry!" Charlie shouted, running toward him. "We have to get you out of here." "No," Harry said, his voice firm. "I'm not running away. Not this time." Charlie grabbed his arm, trying to pull him back. "Harry, there are hundreds of them. You can't fight them all." Harry turned to face Charlie, his eyes glowing with golden fire. "I'm the Dragon Lord, Charlie. It's time I started acting like one." He raised his hand, and the crown blazed with light. The dragons of the sanctuary responded immediately, their attacks becoming faster, more coordinated, more deadly. Harry guided them through the battle, commanding them with thought and gesture. But the shadow hunters were relentless. They had come prepared, armed with artifacts that neutralized dragon fire and warded against the crown's power. Harry fought with everything he had, but he was still just a child, and the hunters were seasoned warriors. "Harry!" Ferox's voice echoed in his mind. They are too many. We must retreat, *. Harry looked around at the battlefield, at the dead and wounded dragons, at the shadow hunters advancing relentlessly. His heart ached with the loss, the devastation, the pain. But Ferox was right. They couldn't win this battle. Not today. "Retreat!" Harry shouted, his voice carrying across the valley. "Retreat to the heart of the mountain." The dragons obeyed, fleeing the battlefield and retreating into the tunnels. Harry followed, his heart heavy with defeat. But as he entered the tunnels, he made a vow: he would never let the shadow hunters win. He would become stronger, smarter, more powerful. And he would destroy them all. Hashtag the sanctuary falls, a new chapter begins. The sanctuary of the Ancient Ones was lost. The shadow hunters had occupied the valley, driving the dragons out of their ancestral home. Harry and his companions were forced to flee deeper into the tunnels, deeper into the heart of the mountain, where they could regroup and plan their next move. But the loss was devastating. The dragons had lost their home, their family, their future. And Harry had lost the first real home he'd ever known. "Don't blame yourself," Charlie said, sitting beside Harry in the darkness. "You did everything you could." "It wasn't enough," Harry said, his voice hollow. "I wasn't strong enough. I failed." Charlie put a hand on his shoulder. "You didn't fail, Harry. You survived. And that's what matters. We'll rebuild. We'll find a new home. And we'll never stop fighting." Harry looked at his friend, at the loyalty in his eyes, and felt a flicker of hope. "You really believe that?" "I know it," Charlie said, his voice firm. "You're the Dragon Lord, Harry. You'll never stop fighting. And we'll be right beside you." Harry nodded, a new resolve hardening in his chest. "Thank you, Charlie. I won't let you down." Hashtag the road ahead, destiny calls. Harry sat in the darkness of the heart of the mountain, the crown on his head, his bonded dragons at his side. The weight of his responsibilities pressed down on him, but he refused to let it crush him. He had lost his home, his family, his friends. But he had also gained something precious, a purpose. He was the Dragon Lord, and it was his destiny to protect the dragons, to unite them, and to lead them into a new age. And he would do it. No matter how long it took. No matter how hard the path. "I won't fail," Harry whispered to himself. "I will never fail again." Ferox rumbled with approval, her warmth surrounding him. "I believe in you, little one. You are the Dragon Lord. And the world will tremble at your fire, *." Harry smiled, a small, fragile smile. "Thank you, Ferox. I love you." "And I love you," Ferox said. "Forever and always." End of Chapter 4. Chapter 5, Legacy of the Dragon Lords. The heart of the mountain, a sanctuary within. The heart of the mountain was not just a cavern, it was a world unto itself. Harry had spent weeks exploring its depths, and each day brought new discoveries. There were tunnels that stretched for miles, chambers filled with ancient treasures, and pools of crystal-clear water that glowed with an inner light. And at the center of it all was the pool where Alep's spirit dwelled, a source of wisdom and guidance that Harry had come to rely on. Today, however, Harry's focus was on something else entirely. He stood in a vast chamber, his eyes scanning the walls. They were covered in carvings, intricate, beautiful carvings that told the story of the Dragon Lords. Harry had seen them before, but he'd never had the time to study them properly. Now, with the shadow hunters occupying the sanctuary above, he had nothing but time. "These carvings are incredible," Charlie said, running his fingers over the stone. "They must be thousands of years old." Harry nodded, his eyes fixed on a particular section of the wall. It showed a group of wizards standing with dragons, their hands raised in a gesture of unity. Above them, a crown of fire blazed with power. "The Dragon Lords," Harry said. "This is their history. Their legacy." Charlie moved closer, studying the carvings with fascination. "What does it say?" Harry concentrated, his eyes glowing with golden light. The carvings seemed to come alive, the images shifting and moving as they revealed their secrets. "The Dragon Lords were the first wizards to bond with dragons," Harry said, his voice taking on a distant quality. "They were powerful, wise, and just. They ruled over vast territories, bringing peace and prosperity to all who lived under their protection." He moved to the next carving, which showed a great battle. Dragons and wizards fought side by side against an army of shadowy figures. But not everyone accepted their rule. The Shadow Hunters rose up, determined to destroy the Dragon Lords and seize their power. They fought a war that lasted for centuries, a war that cost countless lives. Charlie's face paled. The Shadow Hunters have been around that long? Harry nodded. They've been waiting for the Dragon Lords to return. They've been preparing for this war for generations. He moved to the final carving, which showed a single figure standing alone, surrounded by dragons. The figure was wearing a crown of fire, the dragon crown. This is the prophecy, Harry said. The one that speaks of the Dragon Lord's return. It says that a child of fire and lightning will rise up, bonded to the Queen of Fire, and unite the dragons against the Shadow Hunters. It says that this child will be the greatest Dragon Lord in history. Charlie stared at Harry, his eyes wide. That's you, Harry. That's exactly what you are. Harry looked at his friend, his expression serious. I know. And that's why I can't fail. The fate of the dragons, the fate of the entire magical world, rests on my shoulders. Hashtag the ancient archives, secrets of the Dragon Lords. Deeper in the heart of the mountain, Harry discovered a hidden archive, a vast library filled with scrolls, books, and artifacts from the time of the Dragon Lords. It was a treasure trove of knowledge, and Harry spent hours every day studying it. He learned about the history of the Dragon Lords, their customs, their laws, their magic. He learned about the different species of dragons, their abilities, their weaknesses. He learned about the Shadow Hunters, their origins, their tactics, their leaders. But the most important discovery was a series of scrolls that detailed the fall of the Dragon Lords. The betrayal, Harry murmured, reading the ancient text. It says that the Dragon Lords were betrayed by one of their own. A wizard named Draven, the brother of Aleph, the first Dragon Lord. Draven was consumed by jealousy and ambition. He wanted the dragon crown for himself, and he was willing to do anything to get it. Charlie leaned over Harry's shoulder, reading the scroll. What did he do? He poisoned Aleph's dragon, Harry said, his voice filled with anger. He shattered the bond between them. And then he led the Shadow Hunters into the heart of the Dragon Court, destroying everything the Dragon Lords had built. Charlie shook his head. That's terrible. How could someone do that to their own brother? Harry's expression hardened. Ambition. Greed. The same things that drive the Shadow Hunters today. They want power, and they don't care who they hurt to get it. He set down the scroll, his mind racing. But there's more. The scroll says that Draven didn't just betray the Dragon Lords, he created the Shadow Hunters. He founded the organization that has been hunting dragons for centuries. Charlie's eyes widened. So the Shadow Hunters are his legacy? Harry nodded. And they've been waiting for the Dragon Lord to return. They know that as long as the Dragon Crown exists, their power is threatened. That's why they're hunting me. They want to destroy me before I can unite the dragons and lead them against them. Charlie put a hand on Harry's shoulder. Then we'll stop them. We'll find a way to defeat them, just like the Dragon Lords did. Harry smiled, a small, determined smile. I know. That's why I'm going to learn everything I can about them. I'm going to find their weaknesses, their secrets, their plans. And then I'm going to destroy them. Hashtag the Dragon Lord's armor, a gift from the past. Among the treasures in the archive, Harry found a set of armor that had belonged to the last Dragon Lord. It was magnificent, made of dragon scale, reinforced with ancient magic, and adorned with gems that glowed with an inner light. Harry ran his fingers over the surface, feeling the power that pulsed within it. This armor is incredible, he said, his voice filled with awe. It's imbued with protective magic. It can deflect spells, resist dragon fire, and even heal the wearer. Charlie whistled. That's some serious craftsmanship. Who made it? Harry examined the armor more closely, reading the inscriptions on its surface. It was made by the dragons themselves. They crafted it for the Dragon Lord, using their own scales and fire. It's the most powerful armor in existence. He looked at Charlie, his eyes bright with excitement. I need to learn how to use this. If I'm going to fight the shadow hunters, I need every advantage I can get. Charlie nodded, his expression determined. Then we'll learn together. I'll help you with the combat training, and you can teach me about the armor's magic. We'll be ready for whatever comes. Harry smiled, a genuine smile that reached his eyes. Thank you, Charlie. I don't know what I'd do without you. You'd probably be running around the mountains, trying to fight shadow hunters in your pajamas, Charlie said, grinning. Which, I have to admit, would be pretty funny. Harry laughed, the sound echoing through the chamber. It was the first time he'd laughed in weeks. #the Crown Secrets, Unlocking the Dragon Lord's Power. The Dragon Crown was more than just a symbol of authority, it was a source of immense power. Harry spent hours each day meditating with the crown, learning to unlock its secrets. He discovered that the crown allowed him to access the memories of all the dragon lords who had come before him. He could see their battles, their triumphs, their failures. He could learn from their experiences, gaining wisdom that would help him in his own journey. But the crown also held a darker secret. One evening, as Harry meditated, he felt a presence in his mind, a cold, malevolent presence that filled him with fear. He tried to push it away, but it was too strong, too determined. You are not the first dragon lord, the presence said. And you will not be the last. But you are the most dangerous, the most powerful. And that makes you a target, *. Harry's eyes snapped open, his heart pounding. Who are you? What do you want? The presence laughed, a cold, cruel laugh. *I am Draven. The first shadow hunter. The one who destroyed the dragon lords. And I have been waiting for you, Harry Potter, *. Harry felt a chill run down his spine. Draven, the traitor, the brother of Aleph, the founder of the shadow hunters. He was still alive, still watching, still waiting. What do you want with me? Harry asked, his voice steady despite his fear. I want what I have always wanted, Draven said. The dragon crown. The power of the dragon lords. Everything that was denied to me. And you, Harry Potter, are the key to getting it, *. Harry's jaw tightened. I'll never give you the crown. I'll never let you hurt my dragons. You will not have a choice, Draven said. The shadow hunters will destroy everything you love. And when you are broken and alone, you will come to me. You will beg me to take the crown. And I will, *. The presence vanished, and Harry collapsed to the ground, gasping for breath. His hands were shaking, and his heart was racing. Draven had been inside his mind, and it had been terrifying. Harry! Charlie shouted, running toward him. What happened? Are you okay? Harry looked up at his friend, his expression grim. Draven is still alive. And he's coming for me. #the Dragon Council, preparing for war. Harry called a meeting of the dragons, the first dragon council in centuries. The dragons gathered in the heart of the mountain, their massive bodies filling the cavern. Harry stood at the center, the crown on his head, his bonded dragons at his side. We are at war, Harry said, his voice echoing through the chamber. The shadow hunters have taken our home, killed our friends, and threatened our future. But we will not give up. We will not surrender. We will fight. The dragons roared their approval, their voices shaking the walls. I have learned that Draven, the first shadow hunter, is still alive, Harry continued. He is the one who destroyed the dragon lords. He is the one who created the shadow hunters. And he is the one who wants the dragon crown. He paused, letting the words sink in. But I have also learned that we are not alone. There are dragons all over the world who are waiting for the dragon lord's call. There are wizards who remember the old ways, who believe in the bond between dragons. And humans. There are allies out there, waiting to be found. Aurelius stepped forward, his silver scales gleaming. How do we find them, young flame? Harry smiled, a determined smile. With the crown. I can feel every dragon in the world. I can reach out to them, speak to them, and bring them to our cause. And with their help, we will defeat the shadow hunters once and for all. The dragons roared their approval again, and Harry felt a surge of hope. ## the first call, summoning the dragons. Harry sat in the center of the chamber, the crown on his head, his eyes closed in concentration. He reached out with his mind, feeling the bonds that connected him to every dragon in the world. He found them in Romania, in the reserves where he'd grown up. He found them in the wilds of Scandinavia, in the mountains of Asia, in the deserts of Africa. He found them in the dragon realm, where they'd been hiding for centuries. And he called to them, one by one. I am the Dragon Lord, he said, his voice echoing through their minds. *I have returned. And I need your help. The shadow hunters have risen again. They threaten our way of life, our future, our very existence. But together, we can defeat them. Together, we can build a new world. The dragons responded with a surge of emotion, hope, anger, determination, love. They were ready to fight, ready to sacrifice, ready to follow the Dragon Lord into battle. We will come, they said. We will answer your call. We will stand with you until the end. Harry opened his eyes, tears streaming down his cheeks. He could feel them, thousands of dragons, all answering his call. They were on their way, flying toward the heart of the mountain from every corner of the world. Harry, Charlie said, his voice filled with awe. They're coming. They're actually coming. Harry smiled, a wide, joyful smile. I know. And together, we're going to win. The gathering, a new army forms. The dragons began to arrive in the mountains. Their numbers growing by the day. They came in waves, hundreds, thousands, then tens of thousands. They filled the skies, their scales glittering in the sunlight. They covered the mountainsides, their bodies forming a living carpet of color and fire. Harry stood at the entrance to the heart of the mountain, watching them descend. He could feel their emotions, their hopes, their fears. They were looking to him for leadership, for guidance, for hope. And Harry was determined not to let them down. Welcome, he said, his voice carrying across the valley. Welcome to the new home of the dragons. You are safe here, protected by the magic of the heart of the mountain. And together, we will build a new future. The dragons roared their approval, their voices shaking the ground beneath Harry's feet. Charlie appeared beside him, his expression one of wonder. This is incredible, Harry. I can't believe you did this. Harry smiled, a small, humble smile. I didn't do this. The dragons did. They believe in me, and I won't let them down. Charlie put a hand on his shoulder. You won't. I know you won't. The Dragon Lord's vow, a promise to the future. That night, Harry stood alone on the mountaintop, looking out over the army of dragons that had gathered below. The crown glowed on his head, and his bonded dragons stood at his side. Ferox was on his left, her massive body a comforting presence. Tsigar was on his right, his golden scales gleaming in the moonlight. I'm going to do it, Harry said, his voice firm. I'm going to defeat the shadow hunters. I'm going to unite the dragons. And I'm going to create a world where dragons and wizards can live together in peace. Ferox rumbled with approval. We believe in you, little one. You are the Dragon Lord. And nothing will stand in your way. Harry smiled, a warm, genuine smile. Thank you, Ferox. Thank you for everything. Always, Ferox said. Harry turned to look at the army of dragons below, and he felt a surge of hope. He had the crown. He had his bonded dragons. He had an army of loyal followers. And he had the determination to see his mission through to the end. I won't fail, Harry whispered to himself. I will never fail. ## The hunter's response, a new threat emerges. While Harry was gathering his army, the shadow hunters were not idle. Draven had felt the summons of the crown. He'd felt the dragons answering Harry's call, gathering in the mountains, preparing for war. And he knew that he had to act quickly. The Dragon Lord is stronger than I anticipated, Draven said, his voice cold and calculating. He has gathered an army. He is preparing for war. We must strike before he is ready. The shadow hunters gathered in their hidden fortress, their faces grim with determination. They had been waiting for this moment for centuries, the moment when they would finally destroy the Dragon Lord and claim the crown for themselves. We will attack at dawn, Draven said. We will surround the mountains and destroy the dragons before they have a chance to organize. The Dragon Lord will fall, and the crown will be mine. The hunters nodded, their eyes gleaming with anticipation. They were ready to fight, ready to kill, ready to win. And so began the final conflict between the Dragon Lord and the Shadow Hunters. End of Chapter 5. Chapter 6, The Dragon King's Heir. The dawn before battle, a moment of peace. The morning of the Shadow Hunters' attack dawned cold and grey. Harry stood at the entrance to the heart of the mountain, watching the sun rise over the Carpathian peaks. The sky was a pale, watery gold, streaked with clouds that promised rain. Below him, the valley was filled with dragons, thousands upon thousands of them, their scales glittering in the dim light. He should have been terrified. In a few hours, he would lead these dragons into battle against an enemy that had been preparing for this moment for centuries. He should have been shaking with fear, second-guessing every decision he'd made. Instead, Harry felt a strange calm settle over him. He'd spent the night in meditation, communing with the crown and the spirits of the dragon lords who had come before him. They'd shared their wisdom, their courage, their hope. And they'd reminded him that he was not alone. You carry the fire of all who came before you, Aleph had said. You are the culmination of centuries of sacrifice and love. Trust in that. Trust in yourself, Harry took a deep breath, the cold air filling his lungs. He could feel the dragons stirring below, sensing his presence, drawing strength from his resolve. You ready? Charlie asked, appearing at his side. Harry turned to look at his friend. Charlie was wearing dragon scale armor, his wand in his hand, his expression grim but determined. He'd been preparing for this battle just as hard as Harry had. Ready as I'll ever be, Harry said. Charlie smiled, a small, reassuring smile. We're going to win this, Harry. I know it. Harry nodded, though he wasn't sure he believed it. The Shadow Hunters were powerful, and they had centuries of experience. But Harry had something they didn't have, the love and loyalty of the dragons. I know, Harry said. Let's go. The Shadow Hunters advance, the battle begins. The Shadow Hunters attacked at dawn, just as Draven had promised. They came in a wave of shadow and fire, their dark robes billowing behind them like the wings of carrion birds. They were led by Draven himself, a tall, gaunt figure with eyes like burning coals and a smile that promised death. Harry watched them from the mountaintop, his heart pounding. The dragons were already in formation, their bodies arranged in a protective circle around the heart of the mountain. They were ready to fight, ready to die. For the Dragon Lord. Harry shouted, his voice carrying across the valley. For the dragons. For the future. The dragons roared their approval, their voices shaking. The ground beneath the Shadow Hunters' feet. And then, the battle began. It was chaos, pure, unadulterated chaos. Dragons swooped down from the sky, their flames consuming the hunters' ranks. The hunters fought back with dark magic, their spells tearing through dragon flesh and scale. The air was filled with the roar of fire, the crackle of magic, and the screams of the dying. Harry rode Ferox into the heart of the battle, his wand in one hand, the crown blazing on his head. He directed the dragons with thought and gesture, guiding them through the chaos, turning the tide of battle wherever he went. But the shadow hunters were relentless. They had come prepared, armed with artifacts that neutralized dragon fire and warded against the crown's power. And they had Draven, the first shadow hunter, the one who had destroyed the dragon lord centuries ago. Draven found Harry in the midst of the battle, his eyes blazing with hatred. "You are nothing but a child," he hissed, his voice cutting through the noise. "A pathetic, weak child who thinks he can defeat me." Harry met his gaze, his own eyes blazing with golden fire. "I am the Dragon Lord. And I will never stop fighting you." Draven laughed, a cold, cruel laugh. "Then you will die like the others." He raised his wand, and a blast of dark magic shot toward Harry. Ferox roared and lunged forward, her massive body intercepting the spell. Harry felt the impact through their bond, a surge of pain and darkness that made him cry out. "Ferox!" Harry screamed, his heart breaking. But Ferox wasn't down. She was wounded, but she was still fighting, her claws tearing through the shadow hunter's ranks. Harry's grief turned to rage, and he launched himself at Draven, his fire blazing. The battle between them was fierce, a clash of dragon fire and dark magic, of ancient power and centuries of hatred. Harry fought with everything he had, pouring all his strength into the crown, into his bond with the dragons, into his love for Ferox. And then, it was over. Draven lay on the ground, his body broken and burned. Harry stood over him, his chest heaving, his eyes blazing with fire. "You were wrong," Harry said, his voice cold. "I'm not weak. I'm the Dragon Lord. And I will always protect the dragons." Draven's eyes flickered, and for a moment, Harry saw something there, regret, perhaps, or the ghost of the man he'd once been. Then the light in his eyes faded, and he was gone. #the aftermath, victory and loss. The battle was over. The shadow hunters had been defeated, their army scattered and broken. The dragons had won, but the cost had been devastating. Hundreds of dragons lay dead on the battlefield, their bodies littering the valley like fallen stars. Harry stood among the bodies, his heart heavy with grief. He'd won the battle, but he'd lost so much. So many dragons. So many friends. "Harry," Charlie said, approaching him with a solemn expression. "We need to talk." Harry turned to look at his friend. Charlie's face was pale, his eyes red-rimmed from crying. "Ferox," Charlie said, his voice barely a whisper. "She's wounded." "It's bad, Harry. I don't know if she's going to make it." Harry's heart stopped. He ran toward Ferox, his legs pumping, his breath coming in ragged gasps. He found her at the edge of the battlefield, her massive body crumpled on the ground. She was covered in wounds, her scales cracked and bleeding, her breathing shallow and labored. "Ferox!" Harry screamed, collapsing beside her. "Ferox, no. Please, no." Ferox's eyes fluttered open, her gaze finding his. "Little one," she said, her voice weak and strained. "I am so proud of you." "Don't talk like that," Harry said, tears streaming down his cheeks. "You're going to be fine. I'll heal you. I'll fix this." "No," Ferox said, her voice gentle. "My time is coming, Harry. I can feel it. But I am not afraid. I have lived a long life, and I have loved you more than anything in this world, *. Harry sobbed, pressing his forehead against her snout. "I can't lose you, Ferox. You're my mother. You're everything. And you are everything to me," Ferox said. But being a dragon lord is about letting go. It's about accepting that some things are beyond your control. I will always be with you, Harry. In your heart. In your fire, asterisk. She closed her eyes, and her breathing slowed. Harry felt the bond between them flicker, weaken, and then she was gone. Harry screamed, the sound echoing across the valley. The dragons joined in, their voices rising in a chorus of grief that shook the heavens. The Dragon Lord had lost his mother. And the world would never be the same. Hashtag the dragon's farewell, a new beginning. The funeral was a solemn affair. The dragons gathered in the valley, their heads bowed, their voices silent. They had come to pay their respects to the Queen of Fire, the dragon who had bonded with the Dragon Lord and changed the course of history. Harry stood at the center of the gathering, the crown on his head, his face streaked with tears. He held a torch in his hand, a torch made of dragon fire, the same fire that Ferox had breathed into the world. She was my mother, Harry said, his voice cracking with emotion. She was the first creature to ever love me. She protected me, guided me, and taught me what it means to be a dragon lord. I will never forget her. I will never stop loving her. He raised the torch and touched it to the pyre. The fire spread quickly, consuming Ferox's body in a blaze of golden light. Harry watched, his heart breaking, as his mother's soul ascended to the heavens. I will always be with you, Ferox's voice whispered in his mind. Forever and always. Harry closed his eyes, letting the words wash over him. I love you, Ferox. I'll never forget you. Hashtag the crown's revelation, a new power awakens. In the days that followed, Harry retreated to the heart of the mountain to grieve. He spent hours in the chamber with the pool, communing with Alepht's spirit. He poured out his grief, his anger, his despair. And Aleph listened, offering comfort and wisdom. Loss is the price of love, Aleph said. But it is also the source of strength. Ferox is gone, but her love lives on in you. Use it. Let it guide you, Harry nodded, his tears finally subsiding. I will. I promise. The crown has been waiting for you, Aleph continued. There is a power within it that you have not yet unlocked. A power that will help you defeat the shadow hunters and build a new future for the dragons, Harry looked at the crown, feeling its warmth in his mind. What kind of power? Aleph smiled. The power to command. The power to unite. The power to create a new age of dragons and wizards living together in peace. But to unlock it, you must be willing to embrace your destiny. You must be willing to become the Dragon King, Harry felt a chill run down his spine. Dragon King. It was a title he'd heard whispered by the dragons, but he'd never fully understood what it meant. Am I ready? Harry asked, his voice small. Aleph nodded. You are ready, Harry. You have faced your fears, your doubts, and your enemies. You have proven yourself worthy. The crown will respond to your call, Harry closed his eyes, reaching out with his mind to the crown. He felt its power surge, filling him with warmth and light. And then, he saw it, a vision of the future, a world where dragons and wizards lived together in harmony, where the shadow hunters were nothing but a distant memory. It was beautiful. It was everything he'd ever wanted. And Harry knew, with absolute certainty, that he would make it happen. The search for allies, a new journey begins. With the shadow hunters defeated and Ferox gone, Harry knew it was time to move forward. The dragons needed a leader. The world needed a Dragon King. And Harry was determined to be both. Charlie, Harry said, approaching his friend. I need to leave the heart of the mountain. I need to find allies, wizards who will support the dragons, who will help us build a new future. Charlie nodded, his expression serious. I'll come with you. We'll find them together. Harry smiled, a small, grateful smile. Thank you, Charlie. I don't know what I'd do without you. Charlie put a hand on his shoulder. You'd be lost. Completely and utterly lost. But that's why I'm here. Harry laughed, the sound light and genuine. For the first time in weeks, he felt a glimmer of hope. ## the journey to Hogwarts, a new world awaits. Harry and Charlie traveled for weeks, following the trail of ancient magic that led them to the heart of the wizarding world, Hogwarts. The castle was magnificent, a towering structure of stone and magic, perched on a hill overlooking a vast lake. Harry had heard stories about Hogwarts, but seeing it in person was something else entirely. "It's beautiful," Harry said, his voice filled with awe. Charlie nodded. "It's the greatest school of magic in the world. And it's going to be your new home." Harry looked at him, his eyes wide. "My home?" Charlie smiled. "You're a wizard, Harry. You belong here. And with the dragons behind you, you're going to be the greatest wizard this school has ever seen." Harry felt a surge of excitement and fear. He was leaving behind everything he'd ever known, his dragons, his friends, his mother. But he was also stepping into a new world, a world of magic and wonder. "I'm ready," Harry said, his voice firm. "Let's go." End of Chapter 6. Chapter 7, The Gathering of Dragons. The call that shook the world. The day Harry Potter decided to leave the heart of the mountain was the day the dragons of the world began to stir. It started subtly, a restlessness in the reserves, a flicker of unease in the wild. Dragons who had lived peacefully for decades suddenly became agitated, pacing their enclosures, staring at the horizon with unblinking eyes. Their keepers were baffled, unable to explain the sudden change in behavior. But the dragons knew. Their lord was leaving the sanctuary. He was venturing into the world of men, and they could feel his absence like a physical ache. The bond that connected them to the Dragon Lord pulsed with urgency, calling them to action. "We need to move quickly," Charlie said, packing supplies into an enchanted satchel. "If the dragons start gathering, the ministry will notice. And we're not ready for that kind of attention." Harry nodded, his expression troubled. He could feel it too, the restless energy of the dragons, their growing agitation. The crown on his head pulsed with their emotions, a constant reminder of his responsibility. "I know," Harry said. "But I can't ignore them. They're calling to me, Charlie. They need me." Charlie paused, his expression softening. "I know, Harry. But we have to be smart about this. If we attract too much attention, the ministry will try to control you. And we can't let that happen." Harry took a deep breath, steadying himself. "Then we'll be careful. We'll keep a low profile. But I'm not going to abandon the dragons. They're my family." Charlie smiled, a warm, reassuring smile. "I know. And I'll be right beside you, every step of the way." The first response, dragons abandon their reserves. The first reports came from the Romanian Dragon Reserve. Harry and Charlie had only been gone for 3 days when the news reached them. A dozen dragons had broken out of their enclosures, ignoring the pleas of their keepers, and flown toward the Carpathian Mountains. "The dragons are gathering," Charlie said, his face pale. "They're coming to the heart of the mountain." Harry felt a surge of panic. "But I'm not there. They'll be confused, lost. They won't know what to do." Charlie put a hand on his shoulder. "They know you're not there, Harry. But they're coming anyway. They're answering your call, the call you sent out when you first became the Dragon Lord. They're coming to pledge their loyalty to you." Harry's heart raced. He'd known that the crown would attract dragons, but he hadn't expected it to happen so quickly, so dramatically. He was still a child, barely 11 years old. How was he supposed to lead an army of dragons? "I'm not ready for this," Harry whispered. "I don't know how to lead them. I don't know how to be their lord." Charlie turned to face him, his expression serious. "You've been leading them since you were 5 years old, Harry. You just didn't know it. The dragons don't care about your age or your experience. They care about your heart. And your heart has always been in the right place. Harry looked at his friend, feeling a flicker of hope. You really believe that? I know it, Charlie said firmly. Now let's go find a way to get those dragons back to their homes before the ministry gets involved. #the ministry's panic, an international crisis. The Ministry of Magic was in chaos. Reports of dragon escapes were flooding in from reserves across Europe. Dragons were abandoning their handlers, breaking through enchantments, and flying toward an unknown destination. The International Confederation of Wizards had called an emergency session, but no one could agree on what was causing the phenomenon. It's the Dark Lord, one wizard suggested. He's found a way to control dragons. No, it's the Dragon Lord, another countered. The ancient prophecy is coming true. Both of you are wrong, Amelia Bones said, her voice cutting through the chaos. We have reports from the Romanian reserve. They say a boy, a child, has been living among the dragons. They say he can control them. They say he's the Dragon Lord. The room fell silent. A boy? Controlling dragons? It was impossible. But Amelia had evidence, witness statements, magical signatures, even a photograph of a small figure riding a Hungarian Horntail. We need to find this child, Amelia said. Before the situation spirals out of control. Before the dragons cause irreparable damage. The Confederation agreed. A search was launched, and the hunt for the Dragon Lord began. #the gathering, dragons descend on the Carpathians. Harry and Charlie arrived at the heart of the mountain just as the first wave of dragons descended upon it. It was an awe-inspiring sight. Dragons of every species, every size, every color filled the sky, their wings blotting out the sun. They landed on the mountainside, their bodies forming a living carpet of scale and fire. Harry stood at the entrance to the heart of the mountain, the crown blazing on his head, and watched them come. He could feel their emotions, their hope, their fear, their unwavering loyalty. They had come for him, their lord, their king. I can't believe it, Charlie whispered, his voice filled with awe. There must be thousands of them. Harry nodded, his throat tight with emotion. They're answering my call. They're coming to pledge their loyalty to me. A massive dragon, a Norwegian ridgeback with scales like burnished copper, landed in front of Harry and bowed its head. We have come, Dragon Lord, the dragon said. * we have come to serve you. To fight for you. To die for you, *. Harry felt a surge of emotion, pride, gratitude, love. Thank you, he said, his voice carrying across the valley. Thank you for coming. Thank you for believing in me. The dragons roared their approval, their voices shaking the ground beneath Harry's feet. The international response, wizards demand answers. The gathering of dragons did not go unnoticed by the wizarding world. News of the massive dragon migration spread quickly, and soon, representatives from the International Confederation of Wizards were dispatched to the Carpathian Mountains. They were accompanied by aurors, diplomats, and a fleet of magical photographers. Harry watched them approach from the mountaintop, his expression grim. He'd known this moment would come eventually, but he hadn't expected it to happen so soon. Stay calm, Charlie said, standing beside him. Don't let them see your fear. Harry nodded, steadying his breathing. I'm not afraid. I'm angry. They think they can come here and demand answers from me, as if I owe them anything. Charlie put a hand on his shoulder. You don't owe them anything. But you do need to talk to them. You need to show them that you're not a threat, that you're a leader who wants peace. Harry took a deep breath, then descended to meet the delegation. The confrontation, Harry faces the Confederation. The delegation was led by Amelia Bones, a stern-faced witch with sharp eyes and an even sharper tongue. She studied Harry with a mixture of curiosity and suspicion. So, she said, "You're the Dragon Lord." Harry met her gaze, his expression steady. "I am." Amelia raised an eyebrow. "You're just a child. How can you possibly control all these dragons?" Harry's jaw tightened. "I don't control them. I lead them. There's a difference." "Explain," Amelia said, her voice cold. Harry took a deep breath, then launched into his story. He told them about his childhood with the Dursleys, his accidental apparition to the Dragon Reserve, his bond with Ferox, and his discovery of the Dragon Lord legacy. He told them about the Shadow Hunters, the battles, the sacrifices. When he was finished, the delegation was silent. Amelia's expression had softened, and her eyes were filled with something that looked like sympathy. "You've been through a lot," she said quietly. "More than any child should have to endure." Harry shrugged, trying to appear casual. "I survived. That's what matters." Amelia nodded slowly. "The Ministry is concerned about the dragons, Mr. Potter. Their gathering has caused panic in the magical community. We need assurance that you, and your dragons, are not a threat." Harry met her gaze, his eyes blazing with golden fire. "I am not a threat. I am the protector of the dragons. And I will do everything in my power to ensure that dragons and wizards can live together in peace." Amelia studied him for a long moment, then nodded. "I believe you. But the rest of the Confederation will need more than words. They'll need proof." Harry smiled, a small, determined smile. "Then I'll give them proof. I'll show them that the Dragon Lord is not an enemy, he's the best friend they could ever have." ## The Alliance Proposal, Harry's Plan for Peace. Harry proposed an alliance between the dragons and the wizarding world. "The dragons have been hunted, persecuted, and driven to the edge of extinction," Harry said, addressing the Confederation. "But they are not enemies. They are intelligent, powerful, and loyal. They can be allies. They can be partners." The Confederation members exchanged skeptical glances. This was a radical proposal, one that went against centuries of tradition. "And what exactly would this alliance entail?" one wizard asked. Harry smiled. "The dragons will protect the wizarding world from threats, both magical and mundane. In return, the wizarding world will provide sanctuary for the dragons. We'll establish protected territories, enforce anti-hunting laws, and work together to build a better future." The Confederation murmured among themselves. It was a bold proposal, but not without merit. "We'll need to discuss this further," Amelia said. "But I can promise you this, Mr. Potter, your proposal will be given serious consideration." Harry nodded, satisfied. It was a start. ## The Dragon's Loyalty, a new era begins. Harry returned to the heart of the mountain, his heart light with hope. The dragons were still gathered in the valley, their heads bowed in reverence as he approached. Harry stood at the center of the gathering, the crown blazing on his head, and addressed them. "The wizarding world has agreed to consider an alliance with us," Harry said. "It's not a guarantee, but it's a start. A beginning. And it's more than we've ever had before." The dragons roared their approval, their voices echoing through the mountains. "But this is just the first step," Harry continued. "We have work to do. We need to prove to the wizards that we can be trusted. We need to show them that we are not enemies, we are allies, partners, friends." The dragons settled, their eyes fixed on him with unwavering attention. "I'm going to Hogwarts," Harry said. "I'm going to learn everything I can about magic, about wizards, about the world I'm stepping into. And when I return, I'll be stronger, smarter, and more prepared to lead you." The dragons roared again, their voices filled with pride and determination. "We will wait for you, Dragon Lord," Aurelius said. We will protect the heart of the mountain. And when you return, we will be ready to follow you into whatever future you choose, *. Harry smiled, his heart swelling with love for his dragon family. "Thank you. I won't let you down." Hashtag the journey to Hogwarts, a new chapter begins. Harry and Charlie set out for Hogwarts the next day. The journey was long and arduous, but Harry's excitement kept him going. He was going to Hogwarts, the greatest school of magic in the world. He was going to learn magic, make friends, and build a future for the dragons. Are you nervous? Charlie asked, as they approached the castle. Harry nodded, his heart pounding. Terrified. What if they don't accept me? What if they see me as a threat? Charlie put a hand on his shoulder. They'll accept you, Harry. You're the Dragon Lord. You're destined for greatness. Harry smiled, a small, uncertain smile. I hope you're right. As they approached the castle gates, Harry felt a surge of warmth in his chest. The crown was pulsing with energy, responding to the magic of Hogwarts. I'm ready, Harry said, his voice firm. Let's do this. End of Chapter 7. Chapter 8, Hogwarts Letter Shock. The owl that changed everything. The letter arrived on a grey morning, carried by a magnificent snowy owl with feathers. Like fresh fallen snow. Harry was still half asleep, curled up in a borrowed bed at the Hog's Head Inn, when the owl tapped insistently at the window. Charlie groaned, pulling a pillow over his head. It's too early for owls, Harry. Make it go away. Harry smiled, rising from his bed and crossing to the window. The snowy owl fixed him with an imperious stare, its amber eyes gleaming with intelligence. It was carrying a letter sealed with purple wax, and Harry's heart leaped as he recognized the crest, a lion, a snake, a badger, and an eagle surrounding a large H. Hogwarts. His hands trembled as he broke the seal and unfolded the parchment. The letter was written in elegant, flowing script. Dear Mr. Potter. We are pleased to inform you that you have been accepted at Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. Please find enclosed a list of all necessary books and equipment. Term begins on September 1st. We await your owl by no later than July 31 st. Yours sincerely. Minerva McGonagall. Deputy Headmistress. Harry read the letter 3 times, his heart pounding with joy and terror. He'd known this moment was coming. Charlie had told him all about Hogwarts, about the magical education that awaited him, but seeing the letter in his own hands made it feel real. Charlie, Harry whispered, shaking his friend awake. Charlie, wake up. It came. The letter came. Charlie blearily opened his eyes, groaning. What letter? The Hogwarts letter. Harry shoved the parchment in Charlie's face. I've been accepted. I'm going to Hogwarts. Charlie's eyes widened, and a grin spread across his face. That's brilliant, Harry. Absolutely brilliant. He leaped out of bed, pulling Harry into a crushing hug. I knew it. I knew you'd get in. Harry laughed, tears of joy streaming down his cheeks. I'm going to Hogwarts, Charlie. I'm actually going to Hogwarts. But even as he celebrated, Harry felt a twinge of unease. He was the Dragon Lord. He commanded armies of dragons. How would the wizarding world react to a boy with such power entering their most prestigious school? As if sensing his anxiety, Charlie pulled back and looked him in the eye. Don't worry, Harry. You're going to be fine. Hogwarts is a place for learning, for making friends, for discovering who you are. And who you are is a brilliant, brave, wonderful boy. The dragons know it. I know it. Soon, everyone else will too. Harry nodded, taking a deep breath. You're right. I'm not going to let fear hold me back. I'm going to Hogwarts, and I'm going to make the most of it. The shopping trip, a glimpse of the wizarding world. Charlie took Harry to Diagon Alley to buy his school supplies. The wizarding shopping district was hidden behind a grubby pub called the Leaky Cauldron, and Harry's jaw dropped as they stepped through the entrance. It was a bustling street filled with shops selling everything imaginable, cauldrons, potion ingredients, broomsticks, and books. Witches and wizards bustled past, their robes swishing, their owls hooting from cages. "Welcome to Diagon Alley," Charlie said, grinning at Harry's expression. "Everything a wizard could ever want." Harry's eyes darted from shop to shop, trying to take in everything at once. He was overwhelmed, but in the best possible way. They bought his robes at Madame Malkin's, his cauldron at Potage's, and his wand at Ollivander's. The wand chose him, of course it did, a holly and phoenix feather wand that hummed with power in his hand. "That's a curious wand," Mr. Ollivander said, his pale eyes studying Harry with unsettling intensity. "The phoenix feather came from the same bird that gave the wand to your enemy, Mr. Potter. It's a sign of destiny." Harry shivered, but he said nothing. He knew who Mr. Ollivander was talking about. Voldemort. The Dark Lord who had murdered his parents. But Harry wasn't afraid. He was the Dragon Lord. He'd faced worse than Voldemort. The only purchase that truly excited Harry was at the magical menagerie, where he bought a small, unassuming cage. Charlie raised an eyebrow. "What's that for?" Harry smiled mysteriously. "You'll see. #The train to Hogwarts, a journey of discovery." The Hogwarts Express left from platform 9 3/4, a magical platform hidden between the Muggle platforms at King's Cross Station. Harry and Charlie arrived early, navigating the barrier with practiced ease, and found a compartment near the end of the train. The train was filled with excited chatter, students swapping stories about their summer holidays and speculating about the new year ahead. Harry sat in the corner, the crown hidden beneath his robes, watching the world outside rush by. He was nervous. He'd never been around so many people his own age, and he wasn't sure how to act. The dragons had taught him loyalty, courage, and strength. They hadn't taught him how to make friends. "Don't worry," Charlie said, reading his expression. "You'll be fine. Just be yourself. People will like you." Harry nodded, but he wasn't convinced. #the meeting, Ron Weasley and Hermione Granger. The first person to enter Harry's compartment was a boy with flaming red hair and a face full of freckles. He was wearing second-hand robes, and his wand was held together with tape. "Mind if I sit here?" the boy asked. "Everywhere else is full." Harry smiled, gesturing to the seat across from him. "Go ahead." The boy grinned and sat down, introducing himself as Ron Weasley. "Are you really Harry Potter?" he asked, his eyes wide with curiosity. "The Harry Potter? The one who survived you know who?" Harry nodded, his smile faltering slightly. "Yeah, that's me." Ron's eyes widened even further. "Blimey. Everyone's been talking about you. They say you're some kind of legend." Harry shrugged, feeling uncomfortable. "I'm just a person, Ron. Just like you." Ron was about to respond when the door slid open again, and a bushy-haired girl with prominent front teeth stuck her head in. "Have any of you seen a toad? A boy named Neville has lost his." Harry shook his head, and the girl sighed. "I'm Hermione Granger. By the way, are you really Harry Potter? I've read all about you. You're in modern magical history and the rise and fall of the dark arts." Harry blinked. "I am." "Of course you are," Hermione said, as if it were obvious. "You're the most famous wizard of our age." Harry exchanged a helpless glance with Ron. This was going to be a long train ride. #the sorting, Harry's House of Lions. The journey to Hogwarts passed in a blur of excitement and anxiety. Harry met more students, learned about the houses, and ate an endless supply of sweets from the trolley. When they finally arrived at Hogwarts, Harry's heart was pounding. The castle was magnificent, towering spires, glittering windows, and walls that seemed to glow with ancient magic. He stepped through the great doors and into the great hall, where the ceiling was enchanted to look like the night sky. The first years were brought to the front of the hall, where a tattered old hat sat on a stool. Harry watched as the Sorting Hat sang its song, then began calling students forward one by one. Granger, Hermione. Hermione walked forward, her head held high, and the hat barely touched her head before shouting, Gryffindor. Harry smiled. He liked Hermione, and he was glad she'd been sorted into the same house as Ron. Weasley, Ronald. Ron turned pale, shuffling forward with nervous steps. The hat considered him for a moment, then shouted, Gryffindor. Ron let out a relieved breath and hurried to the Gryffindor table. And then, it was Harry's turn. Potter, Harry. The great hall fell silent. Everyone was staring at him, the famous Harry Potter, the boy who lived. Harry walked forward, his heart pounding, and placed the Sorting Hat on his head. A voice whispered in his ear. Difficult. Very difficult. You have courage, loyalty, and a thirst for justice. But you also have power, great power. Where to put you, ? Harry felt a flash of panic. Please, he whispered. Not Slytherin. Not Slytherin. Not Slytherin, the hat said. Then. Gryffindor, Harry pulled off the hat, his face flushed with relief. The Gryffindor table erupted in cheers, and he hurried to sit down beside Ron and Hermione. You made it, Ron said, grinning. Welcome to Gryffindor. Harry smiled. Thanks, Ron. It feels good to be here. The Flight of the Dragon, a dramatic entrance. But Harry's acceptance into Gryffindor was just the beginning. As the feast began, Harry felt a familiar pulse of magic from the crown. Something was coming, something large and powerful. He stood up, his eyes glowing with golden fire. Something's happening. The students around him stared in confusion. And then, the ceiling of the great hall shattered. A massive dragon descended through the hole, its scales glittering in the torchlight. It landed in the center of the hall, its eyes fixed on Harry. The students screamed. Teachers leaped to their feet, drawing their wands. But Harry raised his hand, and the dragon bowed its head. It's okay, Harry said, his voice calm. He's with me. The dragon, a magnificent golden emperor, the same one that had hatched from the egg in the vault, lowered his head and nuzzled Harry's hand. I have come, Dragon Lord, Tsigar said. I have come to protect you. Harry smiled, placing a hand on the dragon's snout. Thank you, Tsigar. I'm glad you're here. The great hall was silent. Everyone was staring at Harry with a mixture of awe and terror. And Harry knew, in that moment, that his life at Hogwarts would never be ordinary. Dumbledore's confrontation, the headmaster speaks. After the feast, Harry was summoned to the headmaster's office. Professor Dumbledore was waiting for him, his blue eyes twinkling behind his half-moon spectacles. He studied Harry with an expression of deep curiosity. So, Dumbledore said, you are the Dragon Lord. Harry met his gaze, his chin held high. I am. Dumbledore nodded slowly. I have been expecting you, Harry. I've known about your connection to the dragons for some time. I must admit, I was surprised when I received the reports. A boy, living among dragons, bonded to a Hungarian Horntail, it seemed impossible. It wasn't impossible, Harry said. It was necessary. Dumbledore smiled. Indeed. You have accomplished remarkable things, Harry. Remarkable things. But your journey is far from over. There are dark forces gathering, forces that will seek to destroy you and everything you hold dear. Harry felt a chill run down his spine. Voldemort. Dumbledore nodded. Yes. Lord Voldemort has returned, Harry. And he is more dangerous than ever. He knows about your connection to the dragons. He will stop at nothing to claim your power for himself. Harry's jaw tightened. I won't let him. I'll protect the dragons. I'll protect Hogwarts. I'll protect everything. Dumbledore smiled, a warm, grandfatherly smile. I know you will, Harry. You have the heart of a dragon lord. And the heart of a hero. ## the bond strengthens, Seagar's loyalty. Seagar had refused to leave Harry's side. The Golden Emperor Dragon had taken up residence in the Forbidden Forest, where he was welcomed by the other magical creatures who lived there. But he made it clear that he would always be close to Harry, ready to defend him at a moment's notice. Harry visited him every day, strengthening their bond. They practiced flying together, with Harry riding on Seagar's back, soaring through the sky above the forest. One day, Harry said, his voice filled with determination, "We're going to change the world, Seagar. We're going to create a world where dragons and wizards can live together in peace." Seagar rumbled with approval. **I believe you, Dragon Lord. I believe you, **. ## The cracks appear, a warning from the shadows. But not everyone was happy about Harry's presence at Hogwarts. Rumors began to spread, whispers that the Dragon Lord was a danger, that he was too powerful, that he couldn't be trusted. Some students avoided him, their eyes filled with suspicion. Others openly mocked him, calling him a beast lover and a freak. Harry tried to ignore them, but it hurt. He'd been bullied before, by the Dursleys and their ilk. He thought he'd left that behind when he came to Hogwarts. "You can't let them get to you," Ron said, his expression fierce. "They're just jealous." "Jealous of what?" Harry asked bitterly. "Jealous of being an outcast." "Jealous of your power," Hermione said, her voice gentle. "You're the Dragon Lord, Harry. You command dragons. You have more power than most wizards could dream of. And that frightens them." Harry sighed, rubbing his temples. "I don't want to frighten anyone. I just want to be normal." Ron snorted. "Normal? Harry, you were never going to be normal. You're Harry Potter. You're the Dragon Lord. Embrace it." Harry smiled, a small, reluctant smile. "Thanks, Ron. I needed that." ## The shadow of Voldemort, a threat awakens. But even as Harry tried to settle into his new life, the shadow of Voldemort loomed large. Reports of Death Eater attacks were spreading across the wizarding world. Voldemort was gathering his forces, preparing for a war that would tear the magical world apart. And Harry knew, with absolute certainty, that he would be at the center of it. "I can't let him win," Harry said, his voice fierce. "I can't let him destroy everything I love." Dumbledore looked at him, his eyes filled with sadness. "I know, Harry. But you cannot do this alone. You will need allies. Friends. People who believe in you." Harry nodded, his jaw set with determination. "I know. And I'll find them. I'll build an army of dragons and wizards who believe in a better future." Dumbledore smiled, a warm, proud smile. "I believe you will, Harry. I believe you will." End of Chapter 8. # Chapter 9, Arrival of the Dragon Lord. # The morning after, a school in shock. Harry Potter woke on his first full day at Hogwarts to the sound of whispered conversations outside his dormitory door. "You saw it too, right?" a voice hissed. "A real dragon. Right there in the Great Hall." "Of course I saw it. Everyone saw it." The ceiling shattered, and there it was, massive, golden, terrifying. And Potter just talked to it. Like it was a pet or something. "I heard he's the Dragon Lord. You know, from the old legends. I heard he's dangerous. That he can control dragons with his mind. I heard he's going to destroy us all." Harry sat up in his four-poster bed, his heart heavy. He'd known this would happen, known that his arrival at Hogwarts would cause a stir. But hearing the fear and suspicion in his fellow students' voices was harder than he'd expected. Ron was already awake, sitting on the edge of his bed with a grim expression. "Don't listen to them, Harry. They don't know what they're talking about." Harry forced a smile. "I know. It's just. I want it to be normal. Just for a little while." Ron snorted. "Normal? Harry, you're the Dragon Lord. You command armies of dragons. You were never going to be normal." Harry sighed, running a hand through his messy hair. "I know. I just wish." "Wish what?" Ron asked. Harry shrugged. "I don't know. That people would see me for who I am, not what I am." Ron put a hand on his shoulder. "They will, mate. Give it time." ## the first day, navigating Hogwarts. Harry's first day at Hogwarts was a blur of classes, corridors, and curious stares. Everywhere he went, students whispered behind their hands, their eyes following him with a mixture of fascination and fear. Some looked at him with awe, as if he were a celebrity. Others looked at him with suspicion, as if he were a threat. Harry tried to ignore them, focusing on his classes instead. He discovered that he had a natural talent for some subjects, defense against the dark arts, charms, and transfiguration, while others, like potions, were more challenging. Professor Snape, the potions master, seemed to take an instant disliking to Harry. He sneered at him throughout the lesson, making snide comments about his celebrity status and his lack of discipline. "Potter," Snape said, his voice dripping with disdain, "what is the difference between a bezoar and a moonstone?" Harry blinked, caught off guard. A bezoar is a stone found in the stomach of a goat that can cure most poisons. A moonstone is a gem used in potion making that has no medicinal properties. Snape's eyes narrowed. "Correct. But do you know why a bezoar works? Or do you simply rely on your connections to get by?" Harry felt a flash of anger, but he forced himself to stay calm. "I know why it works, Professor. It neutralizes the poison by absorbing it into its porous surface." Snape stared at him for a long moment, then turned away. 50 points from Gryffindor for your insolence, Potter." Harry bit his tongue, saying nothing. He knew better than to argue with a teacher, no matter how unfair they were. ## the Gryffindor Common Room, Finding Allies. That evening, Harry retreated to the Gryffindor Common Room, hoping to find a moment of peace. The common room was warm and cozy, filled with squashy armchairs and a crackling fire. Harry settled into a corner, pulling out a book on dragon lore that he'd borrowed from the library. He was soon joined by Ron and Hermione, who plopped down in the chairs beside him. "Can you believe Snape?" Ron fumed. 50 points for answering a question correctly. "That's insane." Harry shrugged. "He doesn't like me. I'm used to it." "You shouldn't have to be," Hermione said, her expression fierce. "He's a terrible teacher, and he has no right to treat you like that." Harry smiled, touched by their loyalty. "It's okay. I've dealt with worse." Ron leaned forward, his eyes gleaming with curiosity. "So, what's it like? Being the Dragon Lord, I mean. Do you really talk to dragons?" Harry nodded. "Yeah. I can speak Dragonish, the language of dragons. And I can communicate with them telepathically, through the bond." Ron's eyes widened. "Blimey. That's incredible." "It's also a lot of responsibility," Harry said quietly. "The dragons look to me for leadership. They trust me to protect them. And I can't let them down." Ron and Hermione exchanged a look, then nodded in unison. "Then we'll help you," Ron said. "Whatever you need, we're here." Harry felt a lump form in his throat. "Thanks, guys. That means a lot." ## The Secret of the Crown, a conversation with Dumbledore. Later that week, Harry was summoned to Dumbledore's office for a private conversation. The headmaster's office was a magnificent room, filled with strange silver instruments and portraits of former headmasters. Dumbledore sat behind his desk, his blue eyes twinkling with amusement. "I trust you're settling in well, Harry?" Dumbledore asked. Harry nodded. "It's different from what I'm used to, but I'm managing." Dumbledore smiled. "I'm glad to hear it. Now, I wanted to talk to you about the crown." Harry tensed. "What about it?" Dumbledore leaned forward, his expression serious. "The dragon crown is a powerful artifact, Harry. It grants you immense power, the ability to communicate with dragons, to command their loyalty, to harness their magic. But it also makes you a target." "I know," Harry said. "The Shadow Hunters, the Death Eaters, they all want the crown." Dumbledore nodded. "Indeed. Which is why we must be careful. You must not reveal the full extent of your power, Harry. Not yet. You must build your strength, your alliances, your knowledge. Only then will you be ready to face the challenges ahead." Harry nodded, his jaw set with determination. "I understand, Professor. I'll be careful." Dumbledore smiled, his eyes twinkling once more. "I know you will, Harry. You have a good heart. And with a good heart, you can accomplish anything." ## The Dragon's Flight, a midnight adventure. That night, Harry couldn't sleep. He lay in his bed, staring at the ceiling, his mind racing with thoughts of the crown, the Shadow Hunters, and the war that was coming. He needed to clear his head, to feel the wind on his face and the freedom of the sky. Slipping out of bed, Harry crept through the common room and out of the castle. The forbidden forest loomed before him, dark and mysterious, but Harry wasn't afraid. He knew the forest was filled with magical creatures, but he also knew that Seagar was waiting for him. He found the Golden Emperor Dragon in a clearing, his golden scales gleaming in the moonlight. Seagar lifted his head, his eyes bright with recognition. "Dragon Lord," Seagar said. "You are troubled." Harry nodded, climbing onto the dragon's back. "I can't sleep. I needed to fly." Seagar rumbled with understanding. "Then fly we shall." He launched himself into the sky, and Harry felt the familiar rush of wind against his face. They soared over the forest, over the castle, over the mountains beyond. The world was spread out beneath them, vast and beautiful and full of possibility. For a few precious moments, Harry forgot about his worries. He was just a boy, flying on a dragon, feeling free. But as they circled back toward the castle, Harry saw something that made his blood run cold. A figure, cloaked in shadow, standing on the edge of the forbidden forest. Watching him. Waiting. Harry's heart pounded. "Seagar, go back. Quickly." Seagar obeyed, descending toward the forest. But when they reached the spot where the figure had been standing, there was nothing there. Just shadows and silence. Harry shivered. He knew, with absolute certainty, that the figure was connected to Voldemort. The Dark Lord was watching him. Waiting for his moment to strike. ## The first challenge, Draco. Malfoy's attack. The next day, Harry's fears were confirmed. He was walking through the corridor when Draco Malfoy appeared, flanked by his usual cronies, Crabbe and Goyle. Draco's face was twisted with contempt. "So, Potter," Draco sneered. "I hear you've been making friends with the dragons. How adorable. Do you think they'll protect you when the Dark Lord comes?" Harry met his gaze, his expression calm. "I don't need dragons to protect me from you, Malfoy. I can handle you on my own." Draco's eyes narrowed. "You think you're so clever, don't you? The great Harry Potter, the Dragon Lord. But you're just a freak. A monster. And monsters don't belong in Hogwarts." Harry felt a flash of anger, but he forced himself to stay calm. I belong here just as much as you do, Malfoy. And no amount of bullying is going to change that. Draco's face reddened with rage. We'll see about that, Potter. We'll see. He raised his wand, but before he could cast a spell, a voice rang out, Malfoy. What do you think you're doing? Professor McGonagall was approaching, her expression stern. Detention, Mr. Malfoy. And 50 points from Slytherin. Draco spluttered with outrage, but McGonagall silenced him with a glare. And if I ever catch you threatening another student again, I will have you expelled. Do I make myself clear? Draco nodded, his face pale with fury. He shot Harry a venomous look, then stalked away. Harry let out a relieved breath. Thanks, Professor. McGonagall looked at him, her expression softening slightly. You handled that well, Mr. Potter. But be careful. Draco Malfoy is not the only one who wishes you harm. There are darker forces at work in this school. Harry nodded, his jaw set with determination. I know, Professor. I'll be careful. ## The Gathering Storm, Voldemort's Return. As the weeks passed, the news from the outside world grew more ominous. Voldemort was gathering his forces, recruiting Death Eaters, and spreading fear throughout the Wizarding world. Dumbledore warned Harry that the Dark Lord was becoming more powerful every day. He knows about you, Harry, Dumbledore said. He knows about your connection to the dragons. He will stop at nothing to claim your power for himself. Harry felt a chill run down his spine. What do I do? Dumbledore smiled, a sad, knowing smile. You prepare, Harry. You train, you learn, you grow. And when the time comes, you face him with courage and determination. You are the Dragon Lord. You are stronger than he knows. Harry nodded, his heart heavy with the weight of his destiny. I won't let him win. I won't let him destroy everything I love. Dumbledore reached out, placing a hand on Harry's shoulder. I know you won't, Harry. I know you won't. ## The Flight of the Dragons, a show of strength. Harry decided it was time to make a statement. He called the dragons, all of them, to gather over Hogwarts. They came in waves, their wings blotting out the sun, their roars shaking the castle walls. The students and teachers watched in awe as thousands of dragons filled the sky. Harry stood on the battlements, the crown blazing on his head, and addressed them. Dragons of the world, he said, his voice carrying across the wind. I have called you here to show the wizards that we are not enemies. We are allies. We are partners. And together, we will build a better future. The dragons roared their approval, their voices echoing through the valleys. Harry turned to the crowd of wizards below, his eyes blazing with golden fire. I am the Dragon Lord. And I will protect the dragons. I will protect the wizards. I will protect everyone who believes in a better world. The crowd erupted in cheers. For the first time, the wizarding world was beginning to see Harry not as a threat, but as a hero. ## A new beginning, hope for the future. Harry returned to the heart of the mountain that night, his heart filled with hope. The dragons had gathered around him, their loyalty unwavering. The wizards had begun to accept him, their fear slowly turning to respect. The war with Voldemort was coming, but Harry was no longer afraid. He was the Dragon Lord. He had the power, the allies, and the determination to win. And he would. End of Chapter 9. # Chapter 10, Secrets Beneath Hogwarts. ## The Whispering Walls, Harry's first clue. The dreams started 3 weeks into Harry's first term. They came every night, vivid and strange, filled with images of ancient corridors and hidden chambers. Harry would wake with the taste of dust in his mouth and the echo of whispered words in his ears, words in a language he almost understood, a language that felt like home. Beneath the stone, the fire sleeps. Beneath the fire, the truth weeps. Find the door, Dragon Lord, and claim what is yours, asterisk. Harry sat up in bed, his heart pounding. The words lingered in his mind, refusing to fade. He knew, with a certainty that went beyond logic, that the dreams were trying to tell him something important. Harry? You all right? Ron mumbled from his bed, half asleep. Fine, Harry said, though he was anything but. Just a dream. Go back to sleep. Ron grunted and rolled over, and Harry was left alone with the whispers. He couldn't shake the feeling that the dreams were connected to Hogwarts, to the castle itself, and to the secrets it held. The founders had been connected to the Dragon Lords. They'd built the castle with dragon magic. And somewhere beneath the ancient stones, something was waiting for him. Harry made a decision. He was going to find out what. #the map, Hermione's discovery. Harry confided in Hermione and Ron during their next study session in the Gryffindor common room. Dreams? Hermione said, her brow furrowed. That's unusual. Dreams can be significant in the magical world, especially for someone with your connections. What do you think they mean? Ron asked, leaning forward. Harry shook his head. I don't know. But I keep hearing the same words, beneath the stone, the fire sleeps. Beneath the fire, the truth weeps. Find the door, Dragon Lord, and claim what is yours. Hermione's eyes widened. That sounds like a riddle. A riddle about Hogwarts. A riddle about what, though? Ron asked. Hermione was already reaching for a book. I've been reading about the history of Hogwarts, the founders, the construction, the magic that went into building the castle. There are legends that the founders built secret chambers beneath the castle. Chambers that haven't been seen in centuries. Harry leaned forward, his interest piqued. What kind of chambers? Hermione flipped through the pages. It says here that Salazar Slytherin built the Chamber of Secrets, that's the most famous one. But there are other legends, too. Chambers connected to the other founders. Chambers filled with ancient magic. She paused, her eyes scanning the text. And there's one more legend. A legend about a chamber that belonged to all four founders. A chamber where they kept their most powerful artifacts. Harry's heart raced. Where is it? Hermione frowned. That's the thing. No one knows. It's said to be hidden beneath the castle, accessible only to those who carry the blood of the founders, or those who share their magic. Harry felt a surge of excitement. That's it. That's what the dreams are telling me. There's a hidden chamber beneath Hogwarts, and I need to find it. Ron looked nervous. Harry, are you sure this is a good idea? Hidden chambers in Hogwarts usually come with traps. And monsters. And certain death. Harry smiled, a determined smile. That's never stopped me before. #the search begins, following the clues. The search for the hidden chamber consumed Harry's every waking moment. He explored the castle during his free time, following his instincts and the whispers that seemed to grow louder the closer he got to his goal. Hermione helped him research, poring over ancient texts. And maps. Ron kept watch, making sure they weren't caught. I think we're getting close, Harry said one evening, standing in a dusty corridor on the 7th floor. I can feel it. The magic is getting stronger. Hermione consulted her notes. The legend says the chamber is protected by a series of tests, trials that only a true heir of the founders can pass. They're designed to prove your worth. Trials? Ron said, his voice squeaking. What kind of trials? Hermione shrugged. The legends don't say. But they're supposed to be dangerous. Harry smiled, his eyes gleaming with golden fire. Good. I like a challenge. #the trial of courage, facing the boggart. The first trial was triggered when Harry touched a hidden stone in the wall of the corridor. The floor beneath them rumbled, and a door materialized in the stone, a door carved with the symbol of Gryffindor, a lion, rampant and proud. Harry pushed it open, and the three of them stepped into a vast chamber. In the center of the chamber stood a wardrobe, its doors slightly ajar. As they approached, the doors swung open, and a Dementor emerged, tall, cloaked, and terrifying. Harry felt the familiar chill, the despair that threatened to overwhelm him. But he didn't run. He raised his wand, his hand steady. Expecto Patronum, he shouted. A silver dragon burst from his wand, charging at the Dementor. The creature recoiled, hissing with fury, and dissolved into nothing. The wardrobe slammed shut, and a voice echoed through the chamber, *, the trial of courage is past. The Dragon Lord has faced his fear and conquered it, *. Harry lowered his wand, his breath coming in ragged gasps. Ron and Hermione were staring at him with wide eyes. That was incredible, Hermione said. Your Patronus is a dragon. Harry nodded, his heart still pounding. It's been a dragon ever since I bonded with Ferox. It's the symbol of my magic. Ron let out a low whistle. Blimey, Harry. That's brilliant. Harry smiled, a small, weary smile. One trial down. Who knows how many more to go? Hashtag the trial of wisdom, Hermione's moment. The second trial was triggered by a door carved with the symbol of Ravenclaw, an eagle, soaring high. The chamber behind the door was filled with books, thousands of them, stacked floor to ceiling. A pedestal stood in the center, and on the pedestal was a single scroll. Harry approached the scroll, but as he reached for it, a voice echoed through the chamber, * only the wise may pass. Answer my riddle, and the way will open, *. A riddle appeared in glowing letters on the wall. *, I speak without a mouth, hear without ears. I have no body, but I come alive with the wind. What am I, *? Harry frowned, thinking hard. But before he could answer, Hermione stepped forward. An echo, she said confidently. The answer is an echo. The letters glowed brightly, and the scroll unrolled, revealing a passage that led deeper into the chamber. Brilliant, Hermione! Ron exclaimed. Hermione smiled, a proud smile. It was obvious. The riddle was from a collection of ancient puzzles I read about last summer. Harry felt a surge of gratitude for his friend. Thank you, Hermione. I couldn't have done this without you. Hermione's smile softened. That's what friends are for, Harry. Hashtag the trial of loyalty, Ron's sacrifice. The third trial was triggered by a door carved with the symbol of Hufflepuff, a badger, steadfast and true. The chamber behind the door was filled with a maze of mirrors, each one reflecting a different image. Harry walked through the maze, his footsteps echoing in the silence. At the center of the maze was a pedestal, and on the pedestal sat a golden cup. As Harry reached for it, the mirrors began to shimmer, and a voice echoed through the chamber, * only the loyal may pass. Prove your loyalty, or be trapped here forever, *. Suddenly, the mirrors began to show images of Harry's friends, his dragons, his family. They were in danger, and only Harry could save them. Harry, don't! Ron shouted. It's a trap. Harry turned to see Ron struggling against a mirror that was trying to pull him in. Hermione was being dragged toward another. Choose, Dragon Lord, the voice boomed. Save your friends, or claim the cup. You cannot do both. Harry hesitated for only a moment. Then he turned away from the cup and ran toward his friends. I won't let you hurt them. Harry shouted, grabbing Ron's arm and pulling him free. I choose them. Always. The mirrors shattered, and the chamber was filled with light. The golden cup floated toward Harry, settling in his hands. * the trial of loyalty is past. The Dragon Lord has proven his heart, *. Harry let out a relieved breath, hugging Ron and Hermione tightly. I'm so sorry. I should never have put you in danger. Ron shook his head, his expression fierce. We chose to come with you, Harry. We knew the risks. And we'd do it again. Harry smiled, a warm, genuine smile. Thank you. I don't deserve friends like you. Hashtag the trial of ambition, Harry's choice. The fourth trial was triggered by a door carved with the symbol of Slytherin, a serpent, cunning and proud. The chamber behind the door was dark and cold, filled with whispers that seemed to come from everywhere at once. In the center of the chamber was a throne, and on the throne sat a crown, not the dragon crown, but something older, something darker. A voice echoed through the chamber, only the ambitious may pass. Claim the crown, and the power of Salazar Slytherin will be yours, Harry approached the throne, his heart pounding. He could feel the crown's power, ancient, seductive, and dangerous. It promised him everything he'd ever wanted: power, respect, the ability to protect everyone he loved. But Harry knew it was a lie. He stopped in front of the throne, his eyes fixed on the crown. I don't want your power, he said, his voice steady. I have all the power I need. I have the dragons. I have my friends. I have my family. I don't need anything else. The crown began to crack, its dark magic crumbling to dust. The chamber filled with light, and a passage opened on the far wall. The trial of ambition is past. The Dragon Lord has proven his wisdom, Harry walked through the passage, his friends at his side. That was close, he admitted. I almost wanted it. Ron put a hand on his shoulder. But you didn't take it, mate. That's what matters. Harry nodded, a small, relieved smile on his face. You're right. I didn't. The Founder's Chamber, the heart of Hogwarts. The fourth passage led to the heart of the castle, the Founder's Chamber. It was a magnificent room, filled with ancient artifacts and glowing crystals. In the center of the chamber was a pedestal, and on the pedestal sat a stone tablet covered in inscriptions. Harry approached the pedestal, his eyes scanning the inscriptions. It's a message from the Founders, he said, his voice filled with awe. They wrote it together, before they parted ways. Hermione stepped forward, her eyes shining with excitement. What does it say? Harry read aloud, to the one who finds this chamber, you have proven yourself worthy of our legacy. You carry the fire of the Dragon Lords, the courage of Gryffindor, the wisdom of Ravenclaw, the loyalty of Hufflepuff, and the ambition of Slytherin. You are the heir to all we have built. Use our magic wisely, and protect the future of all magical beings. Harry felt a surge of emotion. The Founders had known he was coming. They'd prepared this chamber for him, centuries ago. There's more, he said, reading further. Beneath this chamber lies the Forbidden Hatchery, a place where we kept the most powerful dragon eggs, waiting for the Dragon Lord to claim them. The hatchery can only be opened by the blood of the Dragon Lord and the magic of the Founders. Harry turned to his friends, his eyes blazing with golden fire. We have to find the hatchery. It's the key to everything. The secret passage, descending deeper. The Founder's instructions led Harry to a hidden passage behind the throne, a stairway that descended deep beneath the castle. The air grew warmer as they descended, and Harry could hear a faint rumbling, the sound of dragons, deep in the earth. His heart raced with excitement. I can feel them, Harry said. The eggs. They're alive. They're waiting for me. Ron looked nervous. Harry, are you sure about this? We're going deep underground, and we have no idea what's waiting for us. Harry nodded, his expression determined. I'm sure. This is what I was meant to do. This is my destiny. They continued downward, the stairs spiraling into the depths. And then, they reached the bottom. The Forbidden Hatchery, a miracle of magic. The Forbidden Hatchery was a vast cavern, filled with hundreds of dragon eggs. They were arranged in neat rows, glowing with an inner light. Each egg was different, some large and smooth, others small and scaly. They pulsed with life, waiting for the right moment to hatch. Harry walked among them, his eyes filled with wonder. "They're beautiful," he whispered. "So beautiful." Seagar appeared beside him, his golden scales gleaming in the dim light. Asterisk, "They have been waiting for you, Dragon Lord. Waiting for the one who would awaken them." Asterisk. Harry knelt, placing his hand on the nearest egg. It was warm to the touch, pulsing with life. He could feel the dragon inside, sleeping, dreaming, waiting. "I'm here," Harry whispered. "I'm here to awaken you." The egg began to crack. Tiny fissures appeared on its surface, spreading like a spiderweb. And then, the shell shattered, and a small dragon emerged, a creature of fire and light, with scales like burnished gold. The dragon looked up at Harry, its eyes bright with intelligence. "Dragon Lord," it said. "I have waited for you." Harry smiled, tears streaming down his cheeks. "Welcome to the world, little one. Welcome to your home." Hashtag the awakening, a new army. One by one, the eggs began to hatch. Dozens of dragons emerged, golden emperors, silver moons, frost wyrms, shadow drakes. They gathered around Harry, their eyes filled with loyalty and love. "They're bonding with you," Hermione said, her voice filled with awe. "All of them. They're bonding with you." Harry nodded, feeling the bonds forming in his heart. He was connected to every single dragon in the hatchery, their emotions flowing through him like a river of fire. "They're my family," Harry said. "All of them. I'm going to protect them. I'm going to give them a future." Ron put a hand on his shoulder. "We're going to help you, Harry. Whatever it takes." Harry smiled, a warm, genuine smile. "Thank you. I don't know what I'd do without you." Hashtag the secret revealed, a promise to the founders. Harry returned to the founders' chamber, his new dragons at his side. He knelt before the pedestal, placing his hand on the stone tablet. "I promise," he said, his voice filled with determination. "I promise to protect the dragons. I promise to honor the founders' legacy. I promise to create a future where dragons and wizards can live together in peace." The tablet glowed with light, and a voice echoed through the chamber, a voice that belonged to all four founders. "We believe you, Dragon Lord. We have chosen you. And we will stand with you until the end." Harry rose, his eyes blazing with golden fire. He was the Dragon Lord. He had the founders' blessing. And he would never stop fighting for a better world. End of chapter 10. Thank you.